Chapter 1353. What Gu Nianji didn't know was that as soon as she sent out the inquiry email, Kai Xingnan immediately got the news. She was playing night golf with a few friends at the Xiangshan golf course in the suburbs of the imperial capital. In the rolling valley, there were a few large areas of grass that were woven with green grass. Around the grass, it was like a lighted stadium. High-power searchlights shone with snow-white light, illuminating the valley as bright as day. It was as if there were dozens of bright little suns in the night sky. When she heard her phone ring, she took out her phone and glanced at it. She immediately pressed the answer button and straightened her back with the club in her hand. Looking at the green grass and the shining night lights in front of her, she felt exceptionally comfortable. "Miss Kai, the other party has raised an inquiry and disagrees with our choice of prosecution lawyer," the person on the other end of the phone said awkwardly and anxiously in a very low voice. When Kai Xingnan heard this, she immediately smiled very happily. She opened her sexy big mouth, revealing 8 neat snow-white teeth, and snapped her fingers. "Okay, it's finally here. I've been waiting for it." The other party, "Don't be afraid, I have my ways." Kai Xingnan chuckled softly and swung her arm hard to hit a very beautiful eagle. "Amazing, amazing. Great, great. Miss Kai is not only a famous lawyer, but also an awesome golfer. A politician who doesn't want to be a famous golfer isn't a good lawyer." Her companions all gave her a thumbs up and praised her for her good shot. Kai Xingnan smoothly carried the golf club on her shoulder and smiled even more happily. There were 3 types of golf goals: birdie, eagle, and hole in one. The last type was commonly known as a hole-in-one. This kind of shot was the most impressive. Eagle was the middle type. It wasn't particularly good, but it wasn't bad either. These people were praising her, of course, with the intention of flattering her. Even a little bit of good could be praised 10 times out of 10. What's more, under the white night light, Kai Xingnan was wearing a casual white golf dress. The dress was so short that it almost reached the bottom of her thighs, making her breasts and legs even more prominent. Her waist was a little thick, but it couldn't be seen at all under the slightly loose top. A beautiful woman with some skills and family background. This kind of person was rare. Therefore, everyone worked even harder to flatter him. Kai Xingnan raised the cue stick and waved it in the air. She smiled and said, "Let's play, everyone. I just had something to do. I have to work overtime tonight, so I can't accompany you. Today's expenses are on me. Let them put it on my account. Go and settle the bill with my secretary." She left the golf course early and returned to her villa. Her villa was in Fragrant Hill and the road back was very close. It only took a few minutes to drive there. When she returned to her study, she didn't even change her clothes. She immediately turned on her computer and contacted the United States. "Mike, do something for me." Kai Xingnan had a smug smile on her lips. "Help me send something. Remember to use a proxy and don't expose your IP address. I'll give you a Weibo account. Just log in and post a Weibo post with a smile. Then delete it tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. in China. Remember to use a proxy IP." The person on the other side quickly sent a string of words, "I'll handle it, don't worry." This was a Chinese hacker she had worked with in the United States. He was very capable. Although he wasn't as powerful as the legendary Pink Piggy, among the European and American hackers, the nickname she had come into contact with was Big Mac. The Chinese hackers she had come into contact with were also one of the best. After discussing the price with Mike, Kai Xingnan paid the advance payment before happily going to the bathroom to soak in the rose essential oil bath. She liked this faint rose fragrance very much. It was like the natural body fragrance of a virgin seeping out from the inner layer of the skin, just like the smell on Gu Nianji's body. As soon as she smelled it, she knew what brand of rose essential oil Gu Nianji used. Lying in the bathtub, the fragrance of the rose essential oil made her feel intoxicated. Kai Xingnan looked at her hands expressionlessly, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She wanted to fight with her? Gu Nianji was still a little inexperienced. She had learned from her father that when a lawyer fought a lawsuit, if his or her eyes were only limited to the court, then he or she would be a second-rate lawyer. A real first-rate lawyer had to have a holistic view, not only of the laws in the court, but also of public opinion. Under the premise of not breaking the law, making public opinion serve him or her was the quality that a first-rate lawyer should have. The next morning, Gu Nianji woke up in the guest courtyard of the Xie family's villa in the West Mountains. A few slanting shadows of flowers could be seen on the hexagonal window covered with a moonlight screen. It was the shadow of a flowering tree planted under the steps of the bedroom door. Gu Nianji didn't recognize what kind of flowering tree it was, but it looked extremely beautiful on the window screen. She lifted the misty gauze bed curtain and enjoyed the picturesque natural beauty. Only then did she pick up the phone next to the pillow and start her daily morning routine. Every day when she woke up, she would surf the internet to check the weather and the hot news. It had become a daily routine for many people. As a new generation of internet children who had grown up, Gunyenji naturally couldn't fall behind the trend of the times. As a result, when she opened Weibo on her phone, the overwhelming trending news almost occupied her homepage. These reposts were all screenshots of the same Weibo post. The title was, "Torture Your Conscience." Then there was a line of small words, "Look, I don't know when it will be deleted." Below it was a screenshot of a JPG with a few paragraphs written on the iPhone's notes. "I live in the Imperial Capital Procurator's compound. Every day I go in and out of here. When I see the national emblem on the Procurator's gate, I feel both proud and proud. With them, we can protect ordinary people from being harmed by the powerful." In the end, when I was having dinner with a few buddies from the Procuratorate yesterday, I learned a piece of shocking and indignant news. I suddenly felt very sorry for being born a human being. The cause of the matter is very simple. The family of a high-ranking military official who works in the legal profession took a fancy to the meager inheritance of a lonely martyr's descendant and tried every means possible to seize her family's property. Last year, she wanted to sue her for civil compensation, but the people from the Procuratorate stopped her and didn't file a case for her. This year it's even worse. She's directly suing her for intentional murder. Intentional murder, my ass. She's clearly alive and well, but you have to say, intentional murder. I heard that the family of a high-ranking military official once said that she wouldn't be finished until this orphan girl was locked up in prison for the rest of her life. This time, the Procuratorate couldn't take it anymore. Because a high-ranking military official also pressured them, they were forced to file a case. However, the prosecutor, who still had a conscience, resolutely excluded the domineering high-ranking military official's family from the prosecution's lawyers in order to help the innocent martyr's descendants as much as possible. In the end, the high-ranking military official's family flew into a rage and directly ordered the Procuratorate not to exclude her. The family of a high-ranking military official is so arrogant. May I ask if your man knows? There was another screenshot next to this screenshot. It was actually the inquiry email that Gunyenji had sent. Of course, her email was not complete. Many normal inquiries had been erased, and only some sentences had been highlighted. It made her questioning seem sharp and very rude. This Weibo post had many important factors for trending, such as a high-ranking military official, family member, martyr's orphan, and inheritance dispute, as well as murder, orphan, and other eye-catching hot topics. Once it was sent out, it was reposted by a few big accounts and said angrily, "Is this world still a human world?" It was as if someone had dug up their ancestral grave and cut off their family's livelihood. They couldn't wait to be reincarnated. Gunyenji was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She had never expected that the normal inquiry email she had sent to the Procuratorate would also be intercepted by someone with ulterior motives. In addition to the other party's deliberate manipulation of right and wrong, she had instantly become the family member of a high-ranking military official, who had attempted to abuse her power for personal gain and seize the property of a martyr's orphan. Many people on Weibo were listening to the rumors and didn't care what the truth was. In any case, they caught a hot topic and frantically reposted it. The pill party that had previously disappeared had once again reappeared. Just as everyone woke up in the morning and saw this trending news, they happily began to discuss it enthusiastically. Everyone quickly discovered that the original Weibo post had been deleted. F***ck. I was skeptical at first, but now that I see that the original post has been deleted, I instantly believe it. +10086. I was skeptical at first, but when I saw that the original post had been deleted, I immediately believed it. If there was no such thing, why would someone delete someone else's Weibo post? Did you guys notice that the blogger seems to be offline? She was online just now. Oh my god. Don't tell me her water meter was checked. I hate this country. They always let you live in a muddle and die in a baffling manner. Where's hope? I'm going to save up and emigrate. Gunyenji was originally furious, but when she suddenly saw that the original post had been deleted and the comments under the original post had suddenly changed, she was so angry that she laughed. She suddenly calmed down. This wave of posting and then deleting thieves crying "Stop thieves" was really awesome. Did they really think that everything would be fine after creating trouble and then deleting Weibo? Not to mention that spreading rumors on Weibo and reposting 500 times would result in criminal liability. Just the fact that the other party dared to take a screenshot of the inquiry email she had sent to the procuratorate through normal procedures and repost it showed that this matter wasn't that simple. Gu Nianji didn't even need to think with her little toes to figure out that this was the work of Luo Jialan's defense lawyer, Kai Xingnan. She had deliberately distorted the facts to create public opinion in an attempt to use public opinion to pressure her into giving up her position as the prosecution's lawyer. This was because many Huaxia people had the habit of hitting both sides. Even if you weren't wrong, as long as the other party suffered losses, you were guilty and had to compensate. Because it involved the family of a high-ranking military official, in order to avoid suspicion, the military would also come forward to pressure her not to be the prosecution's lawyer. This was really like the saying, if you want to learn poetry, your skills are outside of poetry. The other party was sure that with the double pressure, how could she not give up? Gu Nianji pursed her lips and smiled coldly. Fighting a war of public opinion with her? The online children would teach you how to be a person in minutes. This was the first update of the day, chapter 1343, Listening to the Wind is Rain. She pinched her fingers and calculated that the monthly votes would reach 4,500 today, so it was the third update today. At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the monthly votes would increase to 4,500, and the third update would be at around 8 o'clock in the evening. Kiss kiss. Chapter 1354. Gu Nianji quickly packed her suitcase and said goodbye to Xie Xinxing. Granduncle, I have something urgent to attend to. I need to go back and deal with it. Thank you for your hospitality. When I'm done, I'll treat you to a meal. Gu Nianji was very apologetic and bowed deeply to Xie Xinxing. Xie Xinxing was a little surprised and quickly held her. Nianji, what's wrong? Who gave you the cold shoulder? Tell me and I'll teach them a lesson for you. As he said this, his gaze swept sternly over his staff and the caretakers of the villa. These people trembled in fear and quickly said, Miss Gu, please forgive us if we did anything wrong. Please tell us where we need to improve. We'll definitely change. Instead of denying it, he immediately apologized and sought ways to improve. In the service industry, this operation could be said to be very professional. It was much more stable than those people on Weibo who pushed the blame to others when they encountered problems. Gu Nianji secretly admired the Xie family's ability to manage people. She immediately said, Granduncle, you're thinking too much. It's not them. They didn't treat me badly. On the contrary, they took very good care of me. I have no objections. Something really happened at work. I need to go back and deal with it immediately. Xie Xinxing saw that Gu Nianji wasn't forced at all, so he nodded. Okay, I believe you. Do you need help? Gu Nianji smiled and shook her head. I'll deal with it myself first. If I can't handle it, I'll cry to Granduncle. She made a gesture of wiping away her tears, causing everyone to laugh. The heavy atmosphere just now immediately relaxed. Xie Xinxing sent a car to send her back. Hua Xiaoheng had left last night and didn't stay at Xie Xinxing's place. Therefore, if Gu Nianji wanted to go back now, the Xie family would have to send her back. Gu Nianji gave the driver an address. It was her second-hand house in the Hepingli district. The driver didn't ask any questions and dutifully sent her there. Yijichu discovered the trending searches on Weibo in the morning. He wanted to call Gu Nianji, but on second thought, this was also a good opportunity for Gu Nianji to train herself. Therefore, he resisted the urge to call and quietly gathered information himself. If Gu Nianji couldn't handle it, it wouldn't be too late for him to make a move. Gu Nianji returned to her long-awaited two-bedroom suite in Hepingli and finally relaxed. She composed herself, put down her suitcase and brought her laptop into the bedroom. Gu Nianji placed the computer on the desk in her bedroom and turned it on. She quickly connected to the internet. His impetuous heart quickly calmed down. She focused her attention on her computer screen. On the blue screen, lines of instructions flashed with white light as they flew out from her fingers. Once she entered the internet, she was the queen. She was the master. The network here was crisscrossed and countless information and data were gathered on the network. She was unstoppable and invincible. This time, she didn't even use the special network account that Hua Xiaoheng had given her. She gritted her teeth and only used the neighborhood's network system. From here, she used a VPN to bypass the wall and connect to the outside network. Her VPN was actually a small program that she made herself. It could bypass the wall and directly log into foreign websites. After going around in a big circle, her IP address had already disappeared in the vast network. Only an IP account from a public library in a major European city logged into the Weibo system. The Weibo account that Gu Nianji used was her own alternate account. She used this account to hack into the Weibo system and found the Weibo account that had first posted and then deleted the Weibo post. Gu Nianji couldn't help laughing when she checked the login IP of the account from the background. Spreading rumors required common sense and followed the basic laws. Otherwise, it would be insulting other people's intelligence. Of course, some people who didn't think at all and were used to being led by the nose welcomed others to insult their intelligence every day. Gu Nianji's fingers moved easily and took a screenshot of the person's IP address. The IP address showed that the location of the person who posted the Weibo post was a small town in Australia. What happened to living in the Imperial Procurator's compound? Although Gu Nianji believed that this IP address wasn't the real IP of the person who posted the Weibo post, just this alternate IP address was enough for her to write an article for a while. Gu Nianji smiled faintly and didn't stop there. She cracked it layer by layer, pursued it layer by layer, and used reverse programming to track it down. Finally, she found the person's real IP address. As she had expected, the person's real IP address was in New York, the United States. Gu Nianji once again took a screenshot of the person's real IP address. Then, Gu Nianji began to use a Trojan virus program to attack the network provider where the person's real IP address was located. The attack from Gu Nianji's virus program was dense and ruthless. Soon, it paralyzed the network in the area where the real IP address was located. Many New Yorkers had trouble even opening a web page, let alone surfing the internet. The internet speed seemed to have instantly returned to when the internet was first born, when everyone used 14 kbps. Modem, the primitive era of internet access through telephone lines. Even Mike, who was watching the Wuxia Empire's Weibo event, realized that the Weibo page suddenly didn't move no matter how hard he clicked. The small circle in the upper right corner kept spinning, but no new content could be loaded. WTF. Mike cursed as he pinned the internet speed and found that it was only 14K per second. Damn, he was furious. This was slower than a snail. He picked up his phone and called the network provider, but the line was always busy. It showed that the number of people calling had exceeded their capacity. Gu Nianji didn't know who the person on the other side was, but she knew that it was definitely Kai Xingnan's helper. Therefore she decided to get it done once and for all. She first blocked the internet speed over there so that the person couldn't cause trouble on the Wuxia Empire's internet for the time being. In Luo Jialan's West Mountain Villa, Kai Xingnan had already bailed her out. She sat in front of a laptop with her and watched the criticism of Gu Nianji on Weibo with a smile. They didn't make a move. Other than Mike's initial Weibo post, the rest was left to Kai Songyin's former Internet Water Army company to spread the news. Lawyer Kai, this is really a good move. Luo Jialan was all smiles. She really didn't expect Kai Xingnan to be so capable. The $6 million she spent was worth it. Kai Xingnan's eyes were full of smiles. She said, "This is just a small test. If she refuses to give up, I still have a backup plan." Luo Jialan clapped her hands and laughed. "I'm impressed. This way, if Gu Nianji refused to give up being the prosecution's lawyer, she would have to draw a clear line with Major General Hua. What's the point of getting engaged? Break off the engagement as soon as possible before doing justice on behalf of the heavens." "Yes." Kai Xingnan smiled. "But who would be willing to give up Major General Hua? So she'll definitely give up on being the prosecution's lawyer." "She'll really give up?" Luo Jialan frowned. "But she has a good relationship with that old witch, Song Jining." "What's the use of having a good relationship?" Kai Xingnan didn't think much of it. "Song Jining has already divorced General Hua. She's not a member of the Hua family. What's the use of pleasing her? General Hua isn't actually very old. He can remarry at any time. Gu Nianji will have a new mother-in-law. How could she give up on Hua Xiaoheng for Song Jining? Wouldn't that be picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons?" "Lawyer Kai, I didn't expect you to speak Chinese so well." Luo Jialan smiled and poured her a cup of milk tea. "Have some snacks." Kai Xingnan reached out and patted Luo Jialan. "Don't worry. I said I'll get you off the hook, so I'll get you off the hook. Including your trust fund, I can keep it all. Do you believe me?" "I believe you. Of course I believe you." Luo Jialan laughed so hard that tears came out of her eyes. This is really a pleasant surprise. A few days ago she had been in a state of panic. She thought that she would really lose both her life and her money this time. She might even go to prison. She hadn't expected Kai Xingnan to do this and directly reverse all the details. When the time came, let's see if Hua Xiaoheng would have the face to take out Hua Guanyuan's will. If he dared to take it out, she wouldn't care so much. Between the trust fund and the man, Luo Jialan regretfully chose the trust fund. Although she loved Hua Xiaoheng very much, this man had a heart of stone. Not only did he not have the slightest bit of pity or affection for her, but he also wanted to kill her. Then don't blame her for turning her back on him. Luo Jialan knew that she would never have the chance to marry into the Hua family again, so she didn't care about the Hua family's reputation. After Gu Nianji was sure that the internet speed in the New York neighborhood in the United States couldn't be restored for the time being, she began to make her move on Weibo. Although this person's Weibo had been deleted, his Weibo post had already been screenshotted and reposted everywhere by the Internet Water Army. The Internet Water Army reposted the screenshots and the link to the deleted Weibo post. This move really fooled many onlookers who didn't know the truth. Just as everyone was discussing enthusiastically, someone suddenly realized that something new seemed to have appeared on Weibo. A set of numbers appeared on every Weibo post that everyone posted. Some observant people took a look and realized that it was actually their own IP address. This move on Weibo was really too flashy. In an instant, those who were smart, Internet Water Army and deliberately blackmailed people were all exposed. Holy sh*t. This alternate account is actually yours. Blacklist. Celebrities also use alternate accounts. Look at this account. It's the same IP address as the celebrity's own Weibo account. Just as the entire Weibo was in an uproar over the sudden appearance of the IP address, someone discovered a suspicious point related to the trending Weibo post about the family of a high-ranking military official plotting to seize the family property of a martyr's orphan. An insider living in the Imperial Procuratorate? Why is his IP address different from ours? I'm just bragging. Other than the Internet Water Army and followers on Weibo, there were also many people who were good at thinking, hard to deceive, and good at digging up the truth. They quickly discovered that the IP address of the deleted Weibo post wasn't from the Wuxia Empire. After further investigation, they found that the IP address was a small town in Australia. This was interesting. Someone immediately posted a Weibo post with a hot hashtag including 2 screenshots. The first screenshot was the screenshot that the person had posted on Weibo earlier. It was the original screenshot of the person claiming to live in the Imperial Procuratorate. Although his original Weibo post had been deleted, the Internet Water Army had already taken screenshots of the Weibo post and started to copy and paste it on a large scale. One could find this screenshot with a random search on the internet. Alongside this screenshot was the IP address displayed on the deleted Weibo post. After the message that Weibo content cannot be displayed and has been deleted, there was an IP address from a small town in Australia. Damn it! Look what I found. A person in Australia claims to live in the Imperial Procuratorate. He even drank with a buddy from the Imperial Procuratorate? Is he an idiot? And a drama queen? The original blogger is spreading rumors. Repost 500 times. Put him in jail. Early in the morning, the Weibo post about the family of a high-ranking military official plotting to seize the family property of a martyr's orphan suddenly changed direction. Countless onlookers began to mock the blogger who posted and then deleted the post. A drama queen. Blogger, you should go to drama school instead of stirring up trouble on Weibo. Blogger, do your buddies in the Imperial Procuratorate know that you posted on Weibo in Australia? 2333333-inch Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan came back from dinner and found that the public opinion on Weibo had changed direction within an hour. They could hardly believe their eyes. This was the second update of today, Chapter 1344, Spreading Rumors Requires Common Sense. The monthly ticket was delivered at around 8 o'clock in the evening. Kiss kiss. Chapter 1355. Lawyer Kai, you must have a way, right? Luo Jialan looked at Kai Xingnan with hope. Ever since Kai Xingnan bailed her out of the Special Operations Forces, Luo Jialan had admired Kai Xingnan to the core. Kai Xingnan's lips twitched. Did she think she was a savior? She could only do her best. Jialan, let me see what's going on. Don't worry. Kai Xingnan tried her best to comfort Luo Jialan. Luo Jialan grabbed her arm and said anxiously, you even had a way to get me out of the Special Operations Forces. This must be a piece of cake, right? That's different. Kai Xingnan patiently explained to Luo Jialan, you were taken away by the Special Operations Forces and held for 48 hours. If they can't prosecute you within 48 hours, they can't continue to hold you for no reason. That's why I can bail you out. Luo Jialan's pursuit of Gu Nianji involved a lot of security information, so the Special Operations Forces couldn't hand her over to the judicial authorities for the time being. In addition, she was already involved in a murder case, so they didn't have any other reason to continue detaining her. She would have to appear in court soon anyway, so continuing to detain her would only give others an excuse. As long as they monitored her closely and didn't give her a chance to escape, it would be fine. Therefore she was able to be bailed out by Kai Xingnan. However, Luo Jialan's passport was still confiscated, she was restricted from leaving the country, and she was monitored 24 hours a day by the Secret Service. Kai Xingnan knew that because Luo Jialan was being closely monitored, everything she did when she was with Luo Jialan had to comply with the law. She had never told her that she was looking for an American hacker. Luo Jialan had always thought that the reason she was able to get out of a place like the Special Operations Forces was because of Kai Xingnan's extraordinary skills. She didn't expect that she had taken advantage of a loophole in the law. She looked very depressed for a moment. Kai Xingnan glanced at her hurriedly and wasn't in the mood to continue comforting her. She stood up and packed her things. She said, "I need to go back and study this matter carefully. Rest well. If you're unhappy, don't look at these things online." After saying that, she left Luo Jialan's villa in the West Mountains and returned to her office in the center of the imperial city. She rented an office in a high-rise business building in the top CBD area of the imperial city, hired a secretary and an operator, and started acting like a small boss. After returning to her office, Kai Xingnan immediately contacted Mike in New York. "Mike, what's going on? Didn't I tell you to use a proxy IP?" Kai Xingnan used an encrypted email to contact Mike. Mike received Kai Xingnan's email, but he couldn't open it. Because the internet is too slow __. He also knew that something must have happened for Kai Xingnan to suddenly send him an email at this time, so he directly dialed an overseas number. As long as he didn't use an IP phone, it didn't matter if the internet speed was slow. That was because a direct line was not limited by the internet speed. Kai Xingnan's phone rang a few times. She picked it up and saw that it was Mike's call, so she quickly picked it up. "Mike, what's going on? Didn't I tell you to use a proxy?" Mike's internet speed was slow, so he didn't know what was happening on Weibo. He said doubtfully, "Yeah, I used a proxy. I logged in with an Australian IP, so the other party definitely won't be able to find my real address." Kai Xingnan choked. "Yes, you want to use a proxy IP, but you can't use it casually. Are you an idiot? Have you seen the Weibo content I asked you to post?" Kai Xingnan's face darkened and she scolded Mike rudely. The two of them were quite familiar with each other, so it didn't matter if they scolded each other sometimes. What's more, words like idiot and idiot were also common words between them. Mike blinked and was confused. "I've seen it. What's wrong?" However, he didn't take it to heart. Because he was born and raised in the United States, his mother tongue wasn't Mandarin. He had learned Mandarin on his own later. "How could you make such a mistake after reading it?" Kai Xingnan was furious. "The content I asked you to post was that I lived in the Imperial Procuratorate. But the IP you used was an Australian IP." Mike recalled the Weibo content Kai Xingnan had asked him to post and stood up in shock. "How could this be? How did you know where I used the proxy IP?" "How would I know?" Kai Xingnan sneered. "Now the entire Weibo knows. They're all laughing at you." Mike's face suddenly turned pale. He lowered his head guiltily and said to Kai Xingnan in a low voice, "I accidentally made a mistake. He should disguise the proxy IP as the Wuxia Imperial Procuratorate's IP before posting." But how could Weibo show the IP of the post? This didn't make sense. He had been stirring up trouble on Weibo in China for a long time, but he had never encountered such a situation. Could it be that Weibo had just been upgraded? Damn it. At this critical juncture, there was actually a problem with their internet provider. Mike said sincerely, "Miss Kai, I'm really sorry. There's something wrong with my internet, so I can't log into Weibo normally. I can't see the IP you mentioned from here. When my internet is better." "What are you waiting for?" Kai Xingnan scolded him resentfully. "Hurry up and find a place where you can surf the internet normally and make up for your mistake. Otherwise, not only will I not pay you the balance, but I will also ask you to compensate me for my losses." Mike was shocked, but he suddenly understood. He quickly laughed and said, "Ha! How could I forget? The internet speed here is slow, not all of the United States is slow. I'll find another place to surf the internet." He excitedly picked up his wallet and phone, put his laptop into his computer bag, picked up a simple travel bag and drove to a nearby small town in New Jersey. It was already night in the United States, and there were very few cars on the road outside. He drove to a 4-star hotel in New Jersey in less than 20 minutes and stopped to check in. There was indeed no problem with the internet here. After Mike checked in, he immediately connected to the internet in his room and began to check the situation on Weibo in China. As expected, the IP that posted appeared on Weibo, and under the Weibo post that he posted and then deleted, there were already hundreds of thousands of mocking replies. The reposts and comments supported by the fake reviewers had already been drowned out by the ridicule of many netizens. The hot comments were all scolding him for spreading rumors. Spreading rumors? Spreading rumors? What's wrong with me spreading rumors? You're not as skilled as me, so you can only watch. Mike quickly logged into his account, disguised the login IP as the general IP of the Imperial Procuratorate, and then posted another Weibo post. #hehe. The family of a high-ranking military official is indeed powerful. She can actually manipulate Weibo hashtag. I used a proxy IP to post because I was worried that she would retaliate. In the end, I still underestimated how shameless she is. Kindness limits my imagination and power makes me speechless. This was today's third update, Chapter 1345, Not as Skilled as Others. Good night, dear ones. Chapter 1356. Mike's Weibo post was like throwing a stone into a pot of oil that had just calmed down, causing countless oil sparks to splash up. What? Am I seeing things? He's actually using a proxy IP. That seems to make sense. In order to protect himself, he deliberately used a proxy IP. That makes sense. I also want to get a proxy IP. Excuse me, does anyone know how to get a proxy IP? That's right, the blogger's current IP is XX Courtyard in the Imperial Capital. You know. Ayaya, is it really that dark? Blue Planet is so scary, I want to go back to Mars. Upstairs, this world is far darker than you think. Kindness limits our imagination. Because of the phrase proxy IP, the direction of Weibo suddenly began to reverse. The fake reviewers who had been suppressed by the onlookers took the opportunity to appear again, and in the comments, they confused the public and kept attacking others as fake reviewers. For a moment, Weibo was full of demons and foul air. Many people who wanted to speak had no choice but to shut up. At the same time, the official Weibo account was going crazy from all the messages. These people were all questioning how they protected their users' privacy. How could they reveal everyone's IP? Could they still have a pleasant chat? The technical guys on the official Weibo account were about to collapse. They kept checking their code, but they couldn't figure out where the bug was that revealed everyone's IP. Mike and Kai Xingnan saw the reversal of the situation and breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Luo Jialan, who was in the West Mountain Villa, had been feeling uneasy. After Kai Xingnan left, she ignored Kai Xingnan's dissuasion and secretly went online. When she found that things were turning in her favor, she had mixed feelings. She couldn't help but pick up her phone and call Kai Xingnan. Lawyer Kai, you're amazing. Kai Xingnan. You're online again? Luo Jialan covered her face in embarrassment. I couldn't help it. Otherwise, I would have missed a good show and wouldn't have been able to see Lawyer Kai do whatever she wanted. Kai Xingnan smiled reservedly. Miss Luo, look, this is just the appetizer. There's still the main course. After hanging up the phone with Luo Jialan, Kai Xingnan looked at the Weibo page on the computer screen. Gu Nianji was too inexperienced to fight with her, Kai Xingnan. This time, she really wanted to not only ruin Gu Nianji's reputation, but also make the Hua family, General Ji of the military, and Speaker Long of the Senate all put pressure on her. If they still wanted to preserve Hua Xiaoheng's reputation, Gu Nianji would have to voluntarily withdraw from the prosecution. If Gu Nianji didn't care about Hua Xiaoheng's reputation and insisted on going all the way, then it would be the end of her life as his fiancée. Kai Xingnan flicked her fingers, wishing she could throw Gu Nianji into the trash can like dust. Gu Nianji sat in the bedroom of her small suite and stared intently at the laptop screen. Very good, the other party threw out a reasonable explanation, and as expected, the situation was reversed. Only then would it be interesting. The higher they jumped, the harder they fell. Don't blame me for not warning them. Gu Nianji looked at the IP of the Imperial Procuratorate, and smiled. It was really hard to forge any IP, but they had to forge the IP of the Imperial Procuratorate. She was just worried about how to get the people from the Procuratorate to intervene. Gu Nianji quickly logged into her alternate account and took a screenshot of the Weibo that the person had just posted. The IP address of the Imperial Procuratorate was clearly displayed on it. Then she connected it with the screenshot of Gu Nianji's official inquiry that the person had released earlier. Then she tagged the official Weibo of the Imperial Procuratorate and posted an inquiry. Imperial Procuratorate, is this the inquiry you received? I heard that you were pressured by the powerful to file a case against the orphan of a martyr for intentional murder? Aren't you going to come out and explain? We want the truth. No under-the-table manipulation. Her inquiry was based on the person's Weibo post. Of course, the purpose was to attract the attention of the Imperial Procuratorate. Once she directly tagged the official Weibo of the Imperial Procuratorate, the prosecutor who was secretly colluding with Kai Xingnan couldn't hide the truth. This was because the editor who managed the official Weibo was not in the same system as the prosecutor. They also had to work and perform well. Moreover, Gu Nianji's had also attracted the onlookers under the rumor-mongering Weibo to the Imperial Procuratorate's official Weibo. Almost in an instant, the official Weibo of the Imperial Procuratorate, which didn't even have a single Tom, Dick or Harry every day, was suddenly filled with a bloody storm. Before the group of people could figure out what was going on, they had already started fighting. This was basically a daily routine on Weibo. People came to Weibo to quarrel or to watch a quarrel. If they wanted peace, they had to leave Weibo. Gu Nianji smiled faintly as she watched. The editor in charge of the Imperial Procuratorate official Weibo was almost confused by the overwhelming number of notifications, private messages, replies, and ets. He was finally going to have a taste of being an internet celebrity. Happiness came too quickly, but before he had time to be excited, he realized that everyone was not in the right direction. Everyone seemed to be discussing a hot topic related to the Imperial Procuratorate. Taking a closer look at the screenshots of everyone's chats, there was actually an official inquiry from the prosecutor's office, and it was said that they had been pressured to file a case. Following the link that everyone had tagged him, he found the original blogger's page and took a look. The editor was instantly enraged. Wasn't this the IP address that had already been proven to be a rumor? Why did it have the IP address of the Imperial Procuratorate again? Moreover, the most important characteristic of the Imperial Procuratorate was that they could file cases independently. To say that they had been pressured to file a case by power, was this trying to take away the foundation of their existence and remove their sense of existence? The editor in charge of the Imperial Procurator's official Weibo quickly compiled the matter into a book and sent it to the relevant higher-ups in an urgent email. In recent years, the major government agencies had also attached great importance to online public opinion, and their response was much faster than before. Therefore, when they received the urgent email compiled by the editor in charge of the official Weibo, the relevant leaders of the Imperial Procuratorate immediately held a closed-door meeting to investigate the leak. Everyone knows that before the final trial of the case, all information cannot be released to the public. Only the prosecution and the defense can access these materials. You guys should investigate carefully. Who is leaking the information? Who is colluding with the defense to discredit the plaintiff and the plaintiff's lawyer? According to the information on the internet, they could tell at a glance that the defense was dissatisfied with the plaintiff's lawyer, so they deliberately distorted the facts and spread rumors. This was because the internal inquiry sent by the plaintiff's lawyer, Gu Nianji, through proper channels had actually been screenshotted and posted online. This could only be done by insiders in the Procuratorate. It could not have been a screenshot by the plaintiff's lawyer himself, because this inquiry had a document number automatically assigned by the system after the Procuratorate received the inquiry. This number could prove that it was not a screenshot by the plaintiff's lawyer himself, but a screenshot from within the Procuratorate. Although the other party had erased many words on the inquiry and highlighted some of the original words, they did not erase a very small string of numbers on the upper right corner of the inquiry, which was the inquiry number. This was a blatant leak of information. The Procuratorate had been very cautious in filing the case this time. They had rejected the plaintiff's lawyer's claims several times before. It was not until the end that the plaintiff's lawyer sent new evidence that it became the key to filing the case. All of this had been sent to the defendant and the defendant's lawyer in writing. Right and wrong, both sides would naturally be given a chance to speak during the trial. The trial hadn't even started yet, and this matter was already on the internet. Did they really want to try the case on Weibo? Then what was the point of the police station? What was the point of the Procuratorate? What was the point of the court? They acted in accordance with the law because the law had its own procedures and principles, as well as its own internal logic and standards. It wasn't that justice and justice would fall from the sky just because you randomly said a few words on the internet. Also, this IP address looks like the IP address of our Procuratorate. Check it immediately. Which office does it belong to? Which person? After we find out, we'll deal with it as we should. Our Procuratorate is a legal organization. We won't allow such a black sheep to tarnish our image, disrupt our order, and infringe on the rights of the people. The chief of the Procuratorate gave the order, and no one dared to slack off. They immediately started the investigation. In the end, they quickly found out that although this IP address looked like the IP address of their Procuratorate, after checking the server's log records, no one from their Procuratorate logged into this IP address. In other words, the other party's IP address was fake. He didn't log into Weibo from their Procuratorate server. Immediately after, due to a large-scale computer network investigation, they sent people to check the computer surveillance cameras of various offices, and found a big fish. While Kai Xingnan, Mike and Luo Jialan were proud of the reversal of the online rumors, the Imperial Procuratorate had already found out the prosecutor who had colluded with Kai Xingnan in private. This was because the cause of the matter was Gu Nianji's inquiry, and the first person to receive Gu Nianji's inquiry was the prosecutor. According to the computer surveillance in the man's office, he took a screenshot of the email and secretly saved it to a USB flash drive. Downloading content from the work computer and saving it to a USB flash drive was itself a violation of the relevant regulations. Not to mention an organization as strict as the Procuratorate. There really is someone colluding with the inside and outside. The leaders of the Imperial Procuratorate were so angry that they pounded the table. Call the Secret Service and ask them to send someone to investigate. The Secret Service was a professional organization that supervised domestic departments. It was subordinate to the cabinet and had a lot of authority. The Secret Service also attached great importance to this incident. Not only did they check this person's office computer, but they also started to check his social connections, immediate and collateral relatives one by one. After this investigation, they found something very interesting. There was nothing abnormal in the prosecutor's own bank account, but he had a daughter who had just been admitted to Columbia University, one of the Ivy League universities in the United States. She also received a designated private scholarship, $300,000 for 4 years, including all tuition and living expenses. This private scholarship was actually specially set up by someone at Columbia University, and it was specifically given to his daughter. This was too much of a coincidence. The Secret Service seized on this clue and quickly sent a letter to the Special Operations Forces Field Branch in New York, asking them to help find out who had set up this private scholarship specifically for the prosecutor's daughter. On the Imperial Procuratorate side, after half a day of investigation, when the public opinion on the internet was almost in an uproar, the editor of the official Weibo blog could finally righteously refute the netizens who were clamoring that the country is about to be destroyed. He was the first to at the original blogger. Mr. Truthful Carrot, may I ask, blogger, why did you fake our hospital's IP address? This is our hospital's 24-hour network login log. Your IP address is not shown in it. May I ask, where did you get online? The second person Gu Nianji's alternate account and replied to her message. Cute little corgi. Thank you for your inquiry. We carried out an internal investigation based on netizens' complaints and found that someone colluded with outsiders, distorted the facts and slandered the plaintiff's lawyer. We have already handed it over to the relevant departments for handling. Please wait patiently for the details. As soon as these 2 Weibo posts were posted, the Internet Water Army under the Procuratorate's official Weibo immediately disappeared and withdrew. The onlookers were dumbfounded as they watched this matter take another turn and slap them in the face. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1346, Internal and External Collusion. There were 2 updates today. The second update was around 8 o'clock in the evening. Kiss kiss. Chapter 1357. F***CK. What state? The IP of Imperial Capital's XX Courtyard was fake. Isn't it a proxy IP? Oh my god. For the rest of his life. He even dared to forge the IP address of the Procuratorate? Is this guy an idiot? TSK, this is very awkward. Blogger, do your family know that you have so many dramas? Meekly, am I the only one paying attention to the blogger's accusations? If it's true, then the IP address isn't the point. Under the control of Mike's Weibo, there were mockery from the bystanders and the Internet Water Army's efforts to pull the topic back. However, as the Weibo blogger continued to deceive the masses refused to be his scapegoat. The first requirement for an online exposure complaint was that it had to be true. Once a doubt appeared, it would immediately backfire. Because the enthusiasm of the onlookers was the biggest taboo to be cheated. Seeing the reply from the Imperial Procuratorate, Mike was also shocked. He quickly logged out of Weibo to avoid being tracked. With one hand on the mouse, Mike didn't know what to do. Being a hacker was his forte, but he had never confronted an organization that was being hacked. I didn't expect these bureaucrats to be so efficient. They are even more efficient than the US. In the United States, when you made a complaint to a government agency, you would always get an automatic voicemail. It was already considered fast if you could get a reply within 3 days. It was also common for the complaint to be delayed for a month or 2. It had only been half a day. Mike's palms began to sweat. What should he do? He immediately contacted Kai Xingnan. Lawyer Kai, what should we do? How did you guys react so quickly? How are we supposed to continue? Kai Xingnan bit her lip and frowned as she looked at the bloody storm on Weibo. She was a little worried and said, "Wait a minute. I'll think about what to do." With that, Kai Xingnan dialed the prosecutor's number. This was an internal aide that she had spent a lot of effort to contact. She wanted to ask what was going on. However, the number she dialed rang for a long time, but no one answered. What was he doing? Or do you want to burn the bridge after crossing it? Kai Xingnan's frown deepened. After a while, Weibo became more and more popular. It seemed that their accusations were going to be overturned. How could he do that? If she couldn't bring Gu Nianji down with this, then she would have wasted all these years. Kai Xingnan sneered. Was Xiaoheng, I gave you a chance but you didn't take it. Don't blame me for being ruthless. She sent a message to Mike. I'll send you an email. Check it and do as it says. Mike quickly received the email and quickly browsed through it. His worried expression immediately changed. He beamed with joy and gave Kai Xingnan, who was on the other end of the computer, a thumbs up. Lawyer Kai is so amazing. After receiving new instructions, Mike excitedly logged onto Weibo again and posted his third Weibo post today. Mr. Carrot Truth, this family member of a certain high-ranking military official is too powerful. He can cover the sky with one hand. But can you explain that as the fiancé of the plaintiff's son, don't you want to avoid arousing suspicion? Why did he have to sharpen his head and dig his way in? Why did he have to be the prosecuting lawyer? Your country's laws are practically non-existent. Either break off the engagement or withdraw from the court. You don't have a third choice. He didn't use the IP address of the Imperial Procuratorate anymore. Instead, he used a European proxy IP address. On the third day, when the Weibo post was sent out, the onlookers who wanted to watch the commotion went wild again. Causing trouble, causing trouble. By the way, isn't there a challenge system in the law? Or does our dynasty not have one? Yes. I remember that there is a challenge system. Immediate family members can't participate in the trial at the same time. The blogger is right. It's too dark, too dark. How much darkness is there that we don't know about? The Internet Water Army set the pace, and some of the onlookers who had just been slapped in the face quickly became excited. No one was willing to admit that they had misjudged and stood on the wrong side, so they bit the bullet and wanted to wash it down. Haha, who's the one slapping in the face? Did you see it clearly? I'm only asking you asterisks holes, does your face hurt? These replies were constantly pasted under the relevant Weibo posts, brainwashing the passers-by over and over again. They firmly believed that a lie would become the truth if it was repeated 1,000 times. A small number of people were indeed easily brainwashed, but the vast majority of people had their own judgments of right and wrong. Gu Nianji watched coldly as the Internet Water Army continued to party and pulled the topic to her fiancé relationship with Hua Xiaoheng. She secretly despised them. She directly replied, "To the person above, the principle of challenge applies to criminal proceedings, civil proceedings, and administrative proceedings. The targets of challenge include investigators, prosecutors, judges, clerks, appraisers, and translators. However, there has never been a law that requires lawyers to challenge, and the law also clearly stipulates that close relatives can participate in proceedings as defenders and agents of the parties. Therefore, all of you are flattering the blogger's erroneous and panicky accusation. You are either stupid or vicious. There is no third way. Stupid was to blindly meddle without knowing the truth. Vicious was to stir up trouble with ulterior motives." As soon as her reply was posted, the Internet Water Army was anxious and angry. They immediately tore off their righteous pretense of being a reasonable guest, and hurled insults at her account. It was completely different from the pretense of being a righteous passerby, just now. This completely different style of reply was seen by the real passersby. And they were listening to it. Was this showing everyone what it meant to be a live Internet Water Army? There were also the replies that were constantly copied and pasted. The various Internet Water Armies' wantonly linkage all showed the truth. Gu Nianji had plenty of patience. She patiently dug out the Internet Water Army accounts at the top of the trending comments one by one. She took screenshots of the Weibo posts they had posted over the years and the IPs they had used. Then, she replied to the Internet Water Army posts with the highest number of likes and trending comments. She exposed the story owner layer by layer. Everyone laughed until their stomachs hurt. Every Internet Water Army Weibo post that pretended to be a reasonable guest had their dark history. The dark history of many Internet Water Army accounts using the same IP in the early years was also obvious. This was not only embarrassing but also shameful. Like for the cute little corgi. I have another reason to like little corgi. Little corgi, come into my arms. Post slowly. Don't tire out your cute little legs. Blogger, you're amazing. Can we be each other's fans? The passers-by's popularity immediately rushed to Gunyenji's sock puppet Weibo account. The number of fans on her account rapidly increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. Gunyenji shook her head regretfully. Once she had more fans, she would have to abandon her sock puppet account. Ijichu had been nervously paying attention to the internet. He finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Gunyenji calmly counterattacking. She skinned the other party one by one and used their strength to slap them in the face. This little girl had really grown up. Xiaoheng found out about the news when it was halfway through the popularity on the internet. He put down his work and called Gunyenji several times, but no one picked up. He sent Gunyenji a text message with only a simple question mark. Gunyenji instantly understood and replied, "You don't have to worry about it." Xiaoheng didn't interfere. Instead, he paid close attention to the development of the situation on Weibo. When they discovered that there was a leak in the prosecutor's office, the Secret Service asked the Special Operations Forces for help and asked them to find out who the source of the private scholarship from Columbia University in the United States came from. Xiaoheng immediately instructed the field personnel in New York to fully cooperate with the Secret Service. Kai Xingnan's hands were trembling at this moment. Even this couldn't chase Gunyenji out. Did she have to stand in court and go against her in court? Luo Jialan also called her angrily. "Lawyer Kai, what's going on? Didn't you say that she would either give up on Major General Hua or give up on appearing in court?" The corners of Kai Xingnan's mouth twitched. Of course, she knew that the recusal system didn't apply to lawyers. Moreover, in the United States, even judges didn't have to recuse themselves when there was a family relationship. She just wanted to use the vague concept to fool the onlookers, arouse everyone's emotions, and form a strong pressure from public opinion. She wanted to force Xiaoheng's boss and family to come forward and put pressure on Gunyenji. This was because when such a thing happened, the higher-ups would usually choose to make it a small matter and make it a small matter to smooth things over. Kai Xingnan thought that she knew the political ecology of the Huaxia Empire very well. This kind of method had been tried and tested in the United States. However, she didn't expect the Chinese netizens to be so strong that they refused to be fooled by her. This was the second update of the day, Chapter 1347, Either Stupid or Vicious. Can I update the third update tomorrow? Do I need a reminder about the monthly votes? Good night, sweethearts. Chapter 1358. Kai Xingnan wasn't someone who would admit defeat so easily. What's more, she had already made ample preparations for this time. Although the previous tricks had been inexplicably resolved by the netizens time and time again, she wouldn't admit defeat just like that. Kai Xingnan typed quickly on the computer and reworked the materials she had prepared long ago. She wrote another Weibo post in the same tone as the sock puppet blogger. "Mr. Truthful Carrot, haha, you guys are too naive. You make it sound as if high-ranking officials in your country haven't abused their power for personal gain." Then there were screenshots. Former Prime Minister Do, the beginning and end of his downfall. JP, former Deputy Minister of Secret Service Bai Yuxing, the beginning and end of his defection to the United States. JP, former Senate Chief Yang XX, the beginning and end of taking bribes. JPG, these were not only people and events that netizens were familiar with, but also people and events that the entire country was familiar with. Everyone knew exactly how these high-ranking officials had fallen from power. For a moment, the situation on Weibo became delicate. The fake reviewers began to revel in joy. "Ha! Whose face is hurting? You've been slapped in the face. You're doomed. Don't talk nonsense every day. Who knows what those high-ranking people are doing behind the scenes? Why do you trust those high and mighty men so much? Hee, our imagination is really limited by kindness. We can't imagine how dark this society is." The silent passers-by became even more silent. This was because they couldn't refute these living facts. Moreover, in everyone's life there were more or less things that went wrong. There were also people who blamed the heavens and the earth, who hadn't been in a low mood and been put in a difficult position by their boss or superior. It could be said that Kai Xingnan's move had poked the hearts of many onlookers. It could appropriately arouse everyone's empathy. The most direct effect was to divert the attention of the onlookers and make them shut up. Once the onlookers shut up, Weibo became the domain of the fake reviewers. For a moment, not only the prosecutor's official Weibo, but even Gunyenji's alternate account, Cute Little Corgi, was attacked by the fake reviewers. From personal attacks to unscrupulous verbal abuse, all of them were directed at the cute little corgi. Gu Nianji calmly looked at the Weibo posts that were insulting her and the malicious provocations. Taking a deep breath, she began to organize her words and prepare to fight back. At this moment, she saw an additional comment on her Weibo page. Under the iconic Weibo post "Kindness limits my imagination," a familiar ID popped up. AI Meng Chichi. OP, your imagination is limited by kindness. Is kindness also limiting your intelligence? How dare you make up a rumor that has no logic or common sense? Do you think you can sit back and relax by changing the topic? AI Meng Chichi. Also OP, you should first prove that you have this thing called kindness. AI Meng Chichi. What? You can't prove it? Since you can't prove that you have this thing called kindness, how can you prove that your imagination is limited by kindness? Instead of having his conscience restricted by viciousness? Common sense was limited by ignorance. AI Meng Chichi. This is the first time kindness has been insulted so badly. Gu Nianji's eyes welled up. She raised an arm and covered her mouth with the back of her hand. She wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. As expected of her best friend. Ma Chichi didn't even know about Gu Nianji's alternate account, but she still rushed up to cheer for her. A true bestie should be a good friend who shared the same values and could understand and care for each other. Gu Nianji took a deep breath and edited the Weibo reply she had just written. She first calmly replied to Mr. Carrot Truth's Weibo. Cute little corgi. Mr. Carrot Truth, since you've started to change the topic, can I conclude that your previous point of #the family of a certain high-ranking military official forcibly seizing the property of a martyr's orphan #is not valid? Kai Xingnan's heart skipped a beat when she saw the reply from this Weibo account. How could this person react so quickly? Mike couldn't help replying to Gu Nianji as he was thinking of a way to deal with her. Truthful Carrot Kuan? Nonsense. Why doesn't my point hold water? Cute little corgi? Then why did you change the topic? Truthful Carrot Kuan. When did I change the topic? Can't you open your eyes? Cute little corgi. I saw you mention the former Prime Minister Dou, the former Deputy Minister Bai Yuxing, and the former Chief Secretary Yang of the Senate. Do these people have anything to do with the high-ranking military official you mentioned? Mike fell silent. Did they have anything to do with it? He didn't know. Gu Nianji waited for a while. Seeing that the other party wasn't replying, she continued writing. Let me tell you, they have nothing to do with it at all. The people you mentioned, without exception, are all former high-ranking officials who have already been convicted. What does this mean? This means that high-ranking officials have never been able to do whatever they want. If they break the law, they will still have to be punished by the law like ordinary people. So what exactly is your argument? You're using these people to prove the darkness of society. Are you deliberately pretending to be blind? With Gu Nianji's reply, the silent passers-by came back to their senses. Yes, although there were indeed many things that were not satisfactory in this society, it was constantly improving and progressing. Every day was better than the day before. So why should we give up our home, which is getting better and better, just because of the ulterior motives of others? Gu Nianji couldn't help smiling when she saw more and more onlookers regaining their liveliness. They began to like, repost, and even express their agreement with Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi. Her heart felt warm. This kind of support and encouragement from strangers was the biggest motivation for her to fight against these fake reviewers. Gu Nianji raised her head and took a deep breath. Then she replied to the ID, Love Meng Chichi the most. Cute little corgi. Love Meng Chichi the most, well said. Like, JPG. We are all ordinary people. We are the main force of this society. This society is what we are like. If we are not dark, dirty, greedy, and without conscience, then this society is not either. Her reply instantly received countless likes and reposts, and it immediately became a trending topic on Weibo. Before Kai Xingnan could think of how to continue stirring up trouble, she saw that cute little corgi had almost set off a wave of popularity on Weibo. Her expression turned cold. She immediately picked up her phone and called the fake reviewers company. Remove this trending topic. It doesn't matter how expensive it is. I'll pay. The fake reviewers company and the trending marketing agency on Weibo were, of course, old friends. Whoever they wanted to be on the trending topic would be on the trending topic, and whoever they wanted to be removed from the trending topic would be removed from the trending topic. In short, as long as they had money, it was fine. This time, Kai Xingnan's reaction was considered very fast. The topic with the hashtag cute little corgi quickly disappeared from the trending topic list. Fortunately, Netizens with sharp eyes and quick hands had already taken screenshots of the trending topic list before and after it disappeared. The two screenshots clearly showed how hashtag cute little corgi hashtag suddenly disappeared from the trending topic list as the data kept rising. Those who frequented Weibo were aware of these tricks, but it was the first time that a few netizens who didn't go on Weibo and were attracted by this incident had seen such a situation. Instantly, it exploded. All kinds of connotations were released on the official trending topic list on Weibo. They successfully made the topic that Kai Xingnan had painstakingly created disappear without a trace. Kai Xingnan watched helplessly as the public opinion on Weibo could no longer be controlled. She knew that it would be difficult for her to salvage the situation. She angrily picked up her phone and dialed the prosecutor's number again. This time, after the phone on the other end rang a few times, someone picked it up. "Hello, may I know your surname?" It wasn't the prosecutor's voice. Kai Xingnan became vigilant and said, "Excuse me, is this Mr. XX's number?" She deliberately said the wrong name. As expected, the person on the other end said, "No, you've dialed the wrong number." "It really isn't? You're the prosecutor's office, right?" "That person told me that his name is XX? I'm sorry, then he lied to you. This number isn't XX's number, but XXX's number." The person who answered the phone said the prosecutor's name. Kai Xingnan's heart skipped a beat. She smiled and said, "Okay, then I made a mistake. Thank you." She hung up the phone and quickly calculated in her mind. She had a bad feeling in her heart. With that thought in mind, she didn't use her own phone. Instead, she used an online IP phone to call the prosecutor's wife again. This time, the call was picked up very quickly. Hearing the woman's familiar voice, Kai Xingnan quickly said, "Hello, I'm lawyer Kai. May I ask if your husband?" When the other side heard that it was Kai Xingnan, she immediately said nervously, "You called the wrong number. I didn't get a lawyer." Then she hung up. Kai Xingnan was stunned. She sat in front of the computer in the same position as she was on the phone. Her entire body froze. If she guessed correctly, something had probably happened to the prosecutor. The prosecutor's wife had become familiar with her because of her daughter's application to a foreign university. The two of them talked on the phone several times a day, so their voices were familiar. But just now, she had hurriedly distanced herself from the prosecutor. This was enough to prove that something had happened to the prosecutor. Kai Xingnan put down her phone and stood up from the computer. She crossed her arms and walked back and forth in her office with a frown. At this point, it seemed that she could only defeat Gu Nianji in court. She had asked her father to find someone to handle the matter in the United States. They would never find out that she and her father were involved. So she wasn't worried about that. What she was worried about was whether the prosecutor would rat her out. They had spoken on the phone many times. Although they didn't talk about any sensitive topics on the phone, what if that person dragged her into the water? Kai Xingnan stopped in her tracks and narrowed her eyes to look out the window. She needed to give the prosecutor's family a little warning. If they didn't want their daughter's future to be ruined, they'd better be sensible and not drag her into this. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1348, Something Happened. Today was Monday, so I'd like to remind everyone that there were recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. The monthly tickets were 4,800 plus updates at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the third update was at around 8 o'clock in the evening. You guys are awesome. Chapter 1359. Gu Nianji slumped into the white computer chair in her bedroom. She felt like she was about to collapse. It was as if she had just ended a tough battle and had come down from the battlefield. Her consciousness was drifting, and even the focus of her eyes was blurry. This time she had been the only one in charge from beginning to end, and she had been dealing with countless internet water armies alone. Although it wasn't more difficult than the German Gestapo's intranet, it was much more intense. To Gu Nianji, dealing with people was always more tiring than dealing with computers. She had just closed her eyes to empty her mind and wanted to rest for a while when her phone rang. Gu Nianji didn't even open her eyes. She fumbled for her phone and casually swiped on the screen. The phone connected. She put it to her ear and said softly, "Hello?" The call was from He Jichu. He heard that Gu Nianji's voice was a little tired and asked with heartache, "Tired? Is it Professor He?" Gu Nianji still had her eyes closed as she leaned back in the computer chair. "Yes, I'm tired. I want to sleep." He Jichu had watched the entire situation today. He was very pleased to see Gu Nianji turn the tide by herself, and then ruthlessly teach the other party's internal aid a lesson. Even the prosecutor had been dragged out. "Rest if you're tired." He Jichu didn't say much else. When he hung up the phone, he praised Gu Nianji. "You did very well. I'm proud of you." Gu Nianji pursed her lips into a smile and said lazily, "Thank you, Professor He. I didn't let you down." He Jichu hoped that Gu Nianji could have a good rest. He quickly hung up the phone and checked on the progress of Gu Nianji's case against the Angel in the World Foundation in Japan. Just the day before the verdict, the presiding judge had suddenly died. The Japanese had used a new judge as the reason to temporarily shelve the case. Hijichu didn't want to see them deliberately stall for time. He called the Japanese again, and the answer he got was still polite. "Please wait patiently." "Wait my ass." Hijichu's face darkened as he dialed the number in South America. The He family was powerful in South America and was known as the godfather of South America. It seemed that Japan really didn't take him seriously. Hijichu had never been looked down upon like this before. After the call connected, Hijichu said lightly in Spanish to his subordinates, "How are things in Brazil? Let the Japanese over there lose some money." Brazil was the South American country with the largest Japanese population. The Japanese government had been operating in Brazil for many years and had a complete intelligence chain and garrison. If they wanted to stop him from returning the Gu family's assets, they could only rob Peter to pay Paul. Hijichu's cold and aloof face was expressionless. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes flickered slightly. With a wave of his hand, he had dealt a heavy blow to Japan's interests in Brazil. Gu Nianji quietly leaned against the computer chair to rest for a while. Although his body was very tired, his brain was extremely excited. Actually, she couldn't fall asleep. She just sat there and let her body and brain rest for a while. Just sitting there alone, he suddenly felt that the room was too empty, too quiet, and very lonely. She was a lively person at heart, and an online child would never be lonely on the internet. However, when he left the internet and was alone, his mood would be very low. At this time, how good would it be if someone came to accompany her? If she had a family, she could go home and sit with her parents, chat and laugh, and then prepare dinner together. Her exhaustion just now would definitely be swept away, right? Gu Nianji sighed softly. Just then she heard the doorbell ring. Gu Nianji opened her eyes and looked at her watch in confusion. It was actually already past 6 in the evening. Who would come at this time? She had been working hard in front of the computer all day and hadn't eaten anything. She only drank some milk. Her stomach was growling with hunger, but she didn't want to move. She would rather be hungry. The doorbell rang and she was too lazy to open the door. She planned to pretend that she wasn't at home. If that person really wanted to find her, he would probably call her phone. With this thought, Gu Nianji closed her eyes in relief and continued to pretend to sleep. After a while, the doorbell disappeared. That person left? Gu Nianji opened her eyes. With one hand on the armrest of the computer chair and the other on the table in front of her, she planned to stand up and go to the kitchen to find something to eat. After that, she would take a shower and get ready to sleep. Just then she heard a click from the living room outside. The door opened. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. This person still had her house key. Could it be? She quickly turned around and found that the person had already strode over from the living room. Looking at the half-open bedroom door, she saw a tall and handsome figure wearing a military green uniform. He had already walked to the bedroom door. His figure was as straight as a long sword pointing to the sky. It was Huo Xiaoheng. It was actually Huo Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji immediately stood up from the computer chair and watched in surprise as Huo Xiaoheng pushed the door open and entered. Huo Xiaoheng's expression was normal as he said calmly, "I came to see you. Are you okay?" Gu Nianji's eyes were wet as she nodded heavily. "I'm fine." Huo Xiaoheng curled the corners of his lips. She was still acting coquettishly, so she should be fine. He opened his arms to Gu Nianji. However, Gu Nianji didn't go over and whispered, "I'm too tired to walk." Huo Xiaoheng's heart ached a little, but he still maintained his composure. He walked over to her and picked her up. "Tired? Or hungry?" Gu Nianji wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned into his arms. She said pitifully, "Both? I'm tired and hungry." Huo Xiaoheng. He knew that when she fought with people online, she would be so happy that she wouldn't eat or drink. Huo Xiaoheng lowered his head and kissed her. "Can you still move? I'll take you out to eat." Gu Nianji shook her head. "I can't move. I don't want to go out to eat." "Then go to bed and rest for a while. I'll make you something to eat." Huo Xiaoheng half supported and half carried her to the bed. Gu Nianji smiled happily and hugged Huo Xiaoheng's neck. "I want to eat the egg fried rice you made. No need to go through the trouble. It's very simple. I just need some shrimp, green beans, diced ham sausage, diced mushrooms and scrambled eggs." Huo Xiaoheng, that was called simple? The truly simple egg fried rice only had two ingredients, which were eggs and rice. Hua Xiaoheng said lightly, "Do you have shrimp, green beans, diced ham sausage and diced mushrooms at home?" Maybe there weren't even eggs. Gu Nianji seemed to have thought of something and muttered, "I don't have eggs and rice at home either." So how was he going to make egg fried rice? Conjuring it? Hua Xiaoheng shook his head speechlessly. He brought Gu Nianji to the bed and let her lie down. He took out his phone and went out to order food. He found a familiar private restaurant. It only catered to regular customers and only sold 4 tables of food a day. You had to book a month in advance to eat there. However, Hua Xiaoheng was one of the few customers who didn't need to book. This was because this private restaurant was opened with the help of his grandmother, Xie Zian. The chef of the restaurant used to be his grandmother's chef. Later, he was released and opened a famous private restaurant in the imperial capital. Even the way it was run was suggested by his grandmother, Xie Zian. Hua Xiaoheng inherited most of Xie Zian's assets and also inherited the shares of this private restaurant. The major shareholder called to order takeout. Although this private restaurant never did takeout business, it couldn't refuse Hua Xiaoheng. After ordering dinner, Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at Gu Nianji. "Sleep for a while. It might take half an hour for it to arrive." He rarely ordered this private restaurant's food. This time it was because Gu Nianji wanted to eat egg fried rice, and this private restaurant had a specialty which was egg fried rice. Cooking an ordinary home-cooked dish like egg fried rice tested the chef's skills the most. In addition to egg fried rice, he also ordered prawns with pipa, stewed meatballs, stir-fried pork with pear shreds, bone soup and crab noodles. He also ordered a medium-rare steak for himself. Gu Nianji lay on the bed and pulled Hua Xiaoheng's hand with a smile. "Hua Xiao, you come too. I can't sleep alone." "Hua Xiaoheng, you can't sleep with 2 people." Gu Nianji propped her head up with her hand and lay on the bed. "How can that be? I'll fall asleep if you coax me." Hua Xiaoheng sat by the bed and pulled a thin blanket over her. "If you want to sleep, go to sleep quickly. If you dawdle any longer, you won't be able to sleep when the food is delivered." "Actually, I'm not sleepy." Gu Nianji was excited, but her body was a little tired because she was physically exhausted. However, when she saw Hua Xiaoheng sitting on her bed in his summer clothes, with the collar on his neck tightly fastened, she had the urge to destroy him. She reached out to fiddle with his collar and murmured, "Aren't you hot? Why are you dressed so neatly?" Hua Xiaoheng held her hand and warned her patiently, "Don't play with fire." Gu Nianji smiled slyly and squinted at him. She deliberately misinterpreted what he had just said. "What did you say? Don't play with fire? Did I play with you?" This is the second update of the day, chapter 1349, Don't Play with Fire. Today is Monday, so I remind everyone that there are recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. The monthly tickets will be delivered at 4,800 plus updates. The third update will be at around 8 p.m. You guys are awesome. Chapter 1360. Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't be a man if he didn't react at this point. He composed himself and turned to walk to the bedroom window. Without saying a word, he closed the curtains. The bright bedroom suddenly became pitch black. Gu Nianji rubbed her eyes and took a while to adjust to the darkness. Her lips curved into a silent smile. Her longing gaze followed Hua Xiaoheng's figure as he walked around the bedroom. She watched him walk into the bathroom and listened to the sound of running water in the bathroom. Her heart pounded. Although she was the one who started the fire, the person who carried it out was Hua Xiaoheng. She quietly pulled up the blanket to cover her face. Hua Xiaoheng came out of the bathroom. He had already taken off his casual clothes and was only wearing a black t-shirt and black boxer briefs. He strode to Gu Nianji's bed and found that she had already covered her entire body with the blanket. This little coward only cared about killing and not burying? Hua Xiaoheng quietly lifted the blanket and lay down beside her. Gu Nianji felt the bed beside her suddenly sink and even form a slanted angle. A long arm stretched out from the side, and she conveniently rolled into a warm embrace. Gu Nianji hugged his waist tightly and took a deep breath. Hua Xiaoheng's clean and refreshing aura, like the summer sun, made her deeply infatuated. Hua Xiaoheng looked down at Gu Nianji in his arms and curled his lips. He didn't need to say anything. He only needed to do what he preached. When they separated, Hua Xiaoheng looked at his watch. It had been exactly half an hour. He had to finish this quickly. Gu Nianji was about to fall apart from being shaken by him. She was in a daze and her body was as soft as a piece of tofu. If he were to use even a little more force, she would be smashed into pieces. Hua Xiaoheng comforted her back with one hand and lowered his head to kiss her face. Gu Nianji's forehead was wet with sweat. The lingering sensation rippled through her body and made her feel numb. Her body was completely comfortable, but her mind was a little sluggish. It was the complete opposite of the situation just now. Wu Xiaoheng's timing was very accurate. Not long after, the doorbell rang. His phone also rang. The delivery person had arrived. Wu Xiaoheng got up and put on his t-shirt from the sofa next to the bed. Gu Nianji opened her eyes to see Wu Xiaoheng's back covered in red marks from her scratches. She covered her mouth and smiled secretly. Wu Xiaoheng put on his trousers and went out to open the door. After a while he called out from the dining room, "Nianji, come out for dinner." Gu Nianji slowly sat up and looked down at herself. She was also covered in red marks from the strawberries he had planted. She put on her clothes and continued to act coquettishly, "I can't walk. I can't get out." This little fellow was really the ancestor of reaching out for a yard after being given an inch. Wu Xiaoheng cursed silently as he walked in. He looked at Gu Nianji, who was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes were sparkling, and her plump, curvy lips looked as if they had been smeared with a layer of honey. Her two long legs dangled in front of the bed, and her long hair draped over her back. Her palm-sized face was raised to smile at him without reservation, and it was full of trust and attachment. His heart softened at once. Without saying a word, he carried Gu Nianji in his arms and turned to walk to the living room. He thought that in front of Gu Nianji he was becoming less and less principled and authoritative. The two of them sat at the dining table to eat. The small dining room wasn't even as big as a utility room in Wu Xiaoheng's official residence, but Gu Nianji felt unusually warm. She scooped a bowl of bone soup for Wu Xiaoheng and said with a smile, "You just worked hard. Take some nourishment so that your feet won't be weak and calcium deficient." Wu Xiaoheng pursed his lips and looked up at her. "The person who needs nourishment is you. I can come again." Gu Nianji was speechless. She rubbed her nose and smiled sheepishly. "Then you, keep working hard. I'm afraid that if I do it again, someone will not be able to get out of bed tomorrow." Wu Xiaoheng said slowly as he returned the bone soup. "The soup here is beneficial to women. It can help with beauty. You should drink more." "Really?" Gu Nianji drank it without hesitation when she heard that it could also be used for beauty. The restaurant didn't send much anyway. The small stew pot only had about 2 small bowls worth of soup. However, the color of the soup was very beautiful. The soup was thick and golden in color. It looked very appetizing. The two of them stopped talking and quietly ate dinner. After the meal, Gu Nianji hugged her stomach and groaned, saying that she was full. Wu Xiaoheng ignored her and cleaned the table himself. He put the dishes in the dishwasher and washed his hands before coming out. Under the paper lamp under the lotus cover in the dining room, Gu Nianji leaned against the high-back soft chair and had actually fallen asleep. Her straight nose cast a shadow under the light, and her long eyelashes were like small fans covering her eyes that had just been vibrant. Her plump lips were slightly closed as if she was dreaming of something good. The corners of her lips curled up. She was smiling even when she was asleep. Wu Xiaoheng's mood brightened. He walked over without a sound, bent down, and put one hand into the crook of her leg to pick her up. He carried her to the bathroom and brushed Gu Nianji's teeth and face, then wiped her hands and feet. Gu Nianji was half awake and knew that Wu Xiaoheng was helping her clean up. She obediently opened her mouth to let him brush her teeth and rinse her mouth with water. When he was done, Wu Xiaoheng carried her back to the bedroom, turned off the lights and lay down beside her. Gu Nianji lay in his arms and smelled the familiar and safe scent. She let down all her defenses, tilted her head and completely fell asleep. When she woke up the next morning, Gu Nianji rubbed her eyes. If she hadn't seen Wu Xiaoheng's tall figure standing in front of the window answering the phone, she would have thought that what happened last night was a dream. Because it was too beautiful, so beautiful that it was like a dream. In the dream, Wu Xiaoheng was gentle and affectionate, allowing her to do whatever she wanted. She hugged her knees and sat on the bed, smiling at Wu Xiaoheng as she quietly listened to him on the phone. The call was from the United States. After the operator understood the situation, he specifically asked Wu Xiaoheng if he wanted to answer the phone in person. When assigning the mission, Wu Xiaoheng had specifically instructed to inform him immediately if there was any news from the United States. After the Special Operations Forces in the United States received the mission submitted by the Secret Service, they immediately mobilized people to carry out the operation. In less than 12 hours they found some useful information. Major General Hua, the situation at Columbia University has been preliminarily investigated. There is an American named Mason who set up a special scholarship at Columbia University to reward Asian students. The requirements for awarding the scholarship are basically tailor-made for a particular student. Therefore, it was only given to her. $300,000 for 4 years, including tuition and living expenses. Wu Xiaoheng nodded. Well done. Who is Mason? Have you investigated? We have. He's a member of the United States House of Representatives from Maine. What's his relationship with the Kai family? We only know that he knows Kai Xingnan and her father. The other side said carefully, at the moment, there is no direct evidence to prove that the money Mason used to set up the scholarship is directly related to Kai Sumin and Kai Xingnan. This meant that for the time being, it couldn't be proved that the scholarship was related to Kai Sumin and Kai Xingnan. Wu Xiaoheng looked out the window thoughtfully and nodded after a while. Yes, continue investigating. Can you find out the source of this congressman's income? We're working on it. This wasn't something that could be investigated in a day or two. It was already very impressive to be able to find out who set up the scholarship within 12 hours. This was because the scholarship was set up anonymously. The school usually attached great importance to this type of scholarship and did a very good job of keeping it a secret. If it weren't for the Special Operations Forces field personnel, it would probably take a lot of time just to find out about Mason. After hanging up the phone, Wu Xiaoheng turned around and saw that Gu Nianji was already awake. She was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees and looking at him. Wu Xiaoheng walked over. You're awake. Gu Nianji nodded. Were you investigating Kai Xingnan and her father on the phone just now? Gu Nianji heard Wu Xiaoheng ask about his relationship with the Kai family and why he wanted to investigate the source of a congressman's income. Wu Xiaoheng grunted and said slowly, the prosecutor of the procuratorate was arrested. The Secret Service found out that his daughter recently received a generous scholarship from Columbia University. He asked us to investigate the source of the scholarship. There's no need to say anything. It must have been Kai Xingnan. Gu Nianji almost immediately blamed Kai Xingnan. Wu Xiaoheng curled his lips and rubbed Gu Nianji's head. What's the use of knowing? You're a lawyer. You have to have evidence. I'll find the evidence. Gu Nianji smiled slyly. When the time comes to court, I'll make Kai Xingnan say it herself. Do you believe me? This was the third update of the day, chapter 1350. Let her take whatever she wants. Today was Monday, so I'd like to remind everyone that there were recommendation votes and monthly votes. Good night, dear ones. Chapter 1361. Wu Xiaoheng smiled but didn't say anything. It wasn't that he didn't believe it, but he didn't want to say it himself. If he really said it, Gu Nianji's little tail would definitely be raised to the sky. Yes, one shouldn't be too proud. Get up and take a shower. I've already ordered breakfast. It'll be here soon. Wu Xiaoheng rubbed her head. Gu Nianji put on her slippers and stood up. She smiled and said, actually, it doesn't matter if the United States can't find evidence. As long as the Secret Service works hard, the arrested prosecutor will confess. When the time comes, I might not even have to go to court to skin her. Wu Xiaoheng said calmly, this concerns the child's future. This prosecutor will never confess that he has a direct connection with Kai Xingnan, let alone an indirect connection. Gu Nianji? She looked at Wu Xiaoheng with question marks in her eyes. No way? If he doesn't confess, the responsibility will be all on him, and the crime will be even greater, right? If he exposed Kai Xingnan, he might be able to do some meritorious service and reduce the punishment. People who didn't have children didn't understand their parents' mentality. Wu Xiaoheng looked down at her, then turned around and walked out of Gu Nianji's bedroom. He said, just you wait if you don't believe me. Sure enough, Gu Nianji didn't see the arrested prosecutor pull Kai Xingnan out until the day of the court appearance. He insisted that he couldn't stand Gu Nianji using the Hua family's power to bully the martyr's orphan Luo Jialan and steal her property. So he was possessed and tampered with the list of prosecution lawyers who appeared in court. Then he found out that Gu Nianji had written an inquiry email to the prosecutor's office. He was so scared that he colluded with the hackers and exposed the matter. He only wanted to blow the matter up so that Wu Xiaoheng's superiors and family would persuade Gu Nianji to quit. Wu Xiaoheng's status and military rank made him the best target. Because no matter what the rumors were, as long as it involved the military, it would make some haters with ulterior motives jump out from the shadows to eat human blood. So when the entire internet was in a bloodbath, for the sake of Wu Xiaoheng's reputation and the reputation of the military, Wu Xiaoheng's superiors and family would definitely stop Gu Nianji from competing to be the prosecution lawyer. It was even possible that the charges against Luo Jialan would be dropped. However, he did not expect that someone would be better than the hacker he hired. In other words, he underestimated the intelligence of netizens. Apart from a small number of spammers with ulterior motives and a small number of people who blindly joined in without knowing the truth, there were also a large number of righteous passers-by with brains and conscience. They stood up and fought against the spammers and the brain-dead, and finally turned the whole situation around. This time, the higher-ups of the military and the procuratorate did not smooth things over as they had thought. Instead, they immediately conducted a thorough investigation. Soldiers could not infringe on the interests of the people, but the honor and reputation of soldiers could not be tarnished by people with ulterior motives. It was already the end of May when the case of the Imperial Procuratorate accused Luo Jialan of intentional homicide was heard, and the weather was gradually getting hotter. The trees beside the sidewalk in front of the Intermediate People's Court in the imperial capital provided shade, filtering layers of sunlight. At the entrance of the courthouse, Gu Nianji saw Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan smiling. Kai Xingnan was dressed in Issey Miyake's black professional attire. With her high nose, big mouth and deep-set eyes, she had a westernized heroic spirit and beauty. Luo Jialan, on the other hand, was dressed very well. She had cut her hair short and blown it into a pear blossom. Her eyebrows and eyes were carefully drawn, diluting the sharpness and arrogance in her expression. She was dressed in a light purple Chanel dress, dignified and beautiful and tightly wrapped up. They were also sizing up Gu Nianji. Today, Gu Nianji purposely wore a heavy white long-sleeved shirt with a small lapel collar and a smoky gray thin wool blazer over it. She wore a pair of modified suit pants of the same color and a black Manolo t-shirt. Blahnik professional women's shoes had thin heels that were 7 centimeters long, but because the arch of the foot was designed to bear the weight very well, walking in these thin heels wasn't tiring at all. She liked to wear these kinds of high heels when she appeared in court. Firstly, it gave her an advantage in height and had a psychological effect on the other party. Secondly, standing for a long time wouldn't cause her back to ache. Moreover, this kind of standard professional style made her look older, which would make her appear more mature in everyone's eyes, and make her speak more trustworthy. Gu Nianji was already 1.7 meters tall, and with the addition of 7-centimeter high heels, she looked almost 1.8 meters tall. She had a delicate and bright face the size of a palm, straight legs, flat shoulders and a slender waist. She was as tall as a Victoria's Secret supermodel. In front of Gu Nianji, Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan's aura was suppressed for no reason. However, Kai Xingnan wasn't angry at all. She was also wearing high heels. Her high heels were 12 centimeters long, so she looked only a little shorter than Gu Nianji. But that wasn't the point. The point was that she had successfully seized the prosecutor's weakness. The other party had taken all the responsibility, and it had nothing to do with her. This meant that she and Gu Nianji were standing on the same starting line again. Luo Jialan stood next to them. The celebrity was a head shorter than the two of them. She was also wearing high heels, but she wasn't as tall as Kai Xingnan, so she was outdone. But she wasn't angry because Kai Xingnan had given her enough confidence. This time they were going to defeat Gu Nianji in court and defend their personal freedom and family property. Ever since Luo Jialan had completely given up on Hua Xiaoheng, her mind seemed to have become more flexible. When discussing the case with Kai Xingnan, she came up with several good ideas which Kai Xingnan fully approved of. "Lawyer Gu, why are you the only one here? Where's your victim, Miss Song?" Kai Xingnan smiled from ear to ear and pretended to look behind Gu Nianji. Luo Jialan also smiled and said gently, "Maybe it's because she's going to sue me for intentional murder, so she's too embarrassed to appear in court? After all, she's still alive and well. How can she have the nerve to stand in court and accuse someone of intentionally murdering her? Isn't that like slapping herself in the face? Right?" Gu Nianji chuckled and looked at Luo Jialan and Kai Xingnan. She said, "Lawyer Kai, don't just laugh. Your client is indeed quite ignorant of the law. You can't just laugh by yourself, you have to educate her." Kai Xingnan shook her head with a smile and said, "I'm not laughing at her. I'm laughing at you. What's wrong? Feeling guilty?" Gu Nianji's lips curled up. "So Lawyer Kai is also ignorant of the law? Then what should I do? I'll have an unfair advantage in the lawsuit later." Kai Xingnan said calmly, "You don't have to be so glib. Your words don't count in court." "Is this a glib tongue?" Gu Nianji nodded and pointed at Luo Jialan. "She said that since she's alive and well, she can't sue her for intentional murder. Isn't she ignorant of the law by saying something like that?" Kai Xingnan was stunned. Speechless. Gu Nianji raised her eyebrows. "According to the law, intentional murder is a crime of conduct. As long as she commits intentional murder, then regardless of whether the victim actually dies or not, and regardless of whether her murder is at the stage of preparation, attempted, or termination, it constitutes intentional murder and must be filed for trial. Kai Xingnan was not frightened by Gu Nianji's legal provisions. She sneered and said, "But as long as your so-called victim is still alive, then whether my client committed intentional murder or not is up for debate. Based on the evidence I've gathered, my client has no motive or behavior to commit intentional murder, so you'd better save it. Don't waste your energy." Luo Jialan clapped her hands and said, "Yes, yes. Lawyer Gu, you should recognize yourself. The Hua family and Song Jining don't take you seriously. Otherwise,
your client?
why would you be the only one to come to such an awkward lawsuit?" Gu Nianji raised her hand to look at her watch and said nonchalantly, "It's not even 8 o'clock yet. There's still an hour before the trial begins. Are you worried that you won't live to see my client appear in this hour?" Luo Jialan's smile was a little twisted. "Why are you cursing me? Did I curse you?" Gu Nianji was amused. She raised her hand and casually fiddled with the diamond earring on one of her earlobes. "I'm making a reasonable deduction. Otherwise, how can you explain why you're so eager to conclude that I'm the only one to come to this lawsuit?" Luo Jialan was anxious. "You just know how to distort other people's words." "I'm distorting? Okay, explain. Why are you so sure that my client won't come?" Gu Nianji walked into the courthouse. "There's still an hour left. What's the hurry?" Luo Jialan was so angry that her hands and feet trembled at Gu Nianji's words that she was worried that she wouldn't live to see another hour. She said angrily to Gu Nianji's back, "If you say that again, I'll say that you're threatening my personal safety." Gu Nianji stopped in her tracks and slowly turned around. She fixed her gaze on Luo Jialan, her dark eyes extremely deep. "I'm threatening your personal safety? I'm sorry, Miss Luo, but we have to clarify such serious accusations." She looked up at the surveillance camera at the entrance of the courthouse and held her phone in her hand. "There are surveillance cameras here. Tell me clearly when, where, and how did I threaten your personal safety?" Luo Jialan felt that Gu Nianji was afraid, so she was amused. She covered her mouth and laughed. You have times when you're afraid? I thought you weren't afraid of anything. Idiot." Gu Nianji cursed in a low voice. "I asked you to say it because I don't want you to die in an accident and then frame me." Luo Jialan was stunned. "No way. I was just joking. It's not that serious, is it?" She looked around, worried that there was danger nearby. Gu Nianji raised her phone in satisfaction and pointed it at Luo Jialan with a smile. "Okay, I've already recorded what you said just now. It proves that what you said just now was just a joke. If you really die in the future, I'll have a chance to prove my innocence." Luo Jialan was so angry at Gu Nianji that her face turned red and white. She clenched her fists and said angrily, "Don't be smug. I won't let you succeed in court." This is today's first update, Chapter 1351, A Chance to Prove My Innocence. I estimate that today's monthly ticket will be 5,100 by tonight. How about this, at the end of the second update at 8 p.m., I'll tell everyone if there's a third update. The monthly ticket will be 5,100 in a timely manner. Kiss kiss. Chapter 1362. Kai Xingnan quickly looked around and thought to herself that it was fortunate that this trial was not open to the public and the media. Otherwise, if the new media had captured the scene just now and posted it on the internet, they would have lost in terms of momentum first. "Jialan, don't shout." Kai Xingnan lowered her voice and pulled Luo Jialan's arm. "What if there are people around who are secretly taking pictures?" Luo Jialan was shocked. She quickly adjusted her expression and whispered, "I'm just angry, I know." Kai Xingnan's gaze was dark as she looked in the direction where Gu Nianji's back had disappeared. She said calmly, "In the law, the defendant enjoys a benefit. Oft-out you are innocent until proven guilty." She had to prove her claim. You are innocent until she proves you guilty. Don't worry, it won't be easy for her to win this lawsuit. Luo Jialan pondered over Kai Xingnan's words and still felt a little uncomfortable. With a sullen face she said softly, "Didn't you say that I'll definitely be fine? Why did it become, it's not easy for her to win? Does she still have a chance of winning?" Kai Xingnan, the corners of his mouth twitched helplessly. "Jialan, be more rational. I'm talking about probability. There's no absolute right or wrong and there's no absolute win or loss. You have to be more open-minded. Now you want me to get over it?" Luo Jialan was so angry that her fingers were almost poking Kai Xingnan's chest. You're a lawyer. Your accusation is to acquit me and protect my family property. I'll do my best, but you have to know that they have a lot of power. In order to make Gu Nianji the prosecution's lawyer, they didn't even hesitate to fire a prosecutor. Kai Xingnan said meaningfully, so, you must restrain yourself and not give them an opportunity to take advantage of you. Luo Jialan quickly promised, I will. Don't say those words again. Kai Xingnan turned around and walked forward. Gu Nianji is both cunning and paranoid. If you're not careful, you'll fall into her trap. Luo Jialan nodded with deep understanding. I understand. Lawyer Kai, you must pull her down. Kai Xingnan narrowed her eyes and took a deep breath. She was also looking forward to defeating Gu Nianji. As far as she knew, Gu Nianji had never lost a case since she appeared in court. Her father was so powerful, but he had also lost a few lawsuits in the past. Needless to say, Kai Xingnan had an 80% chance of winning the case and a 20% chance of losing. But overseas, her winning ratio was already heaven-defying. That was why she was able to become a partner of the second-largest law firm in the United States before the age of 30. Although her father had played a role, she was also a capable person. Otherwise, the law firm would not be a charity organization that specialized in poverty alleviation. In short, if she could defeat Gu Nianji this time, she would end Gu Nianji's undefeated record. Gu Nianji entered the courthouse and found the first courtroom where their trial would be held. Because it was a closed-door trial that was not open to the public and the media, the Imperial Capital Intermediate People's Court used the #1 court with the best security measures. The door of the courtroom was open, and the staff inside were already adjusting the equipment. There was a long table in front of the door, and behind the table, there were staff holding equipment to conduct safety checks. Cell phones, cameras and video cameras are not allowed in the courtroom. Laptops had to be examined by professionals from the court before they could be brought in. It was similar to the security check before boarding the plane. Gu Nianji arrived early and patiently took out her things in front of the door. The phone was placed in a transparent plastic bag and locked into the small safe behind the man. He gave Gu Nianji a number as verification to retrieve the phone. Gu Nianji didn't bring a camera or video camera. After checking the laptop, she returned it to her. She smiled at the court staff who were conducting security checks at the door and carried her pile of things into the door of the first courtroom. After more than 10 minutes, Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan also came in. The two of them looked calm, occasionally whispering to each other like they were best friends. Gu Nianji didn't even raise her head as she focused on her preparations. Luo Jialan and Kai Xingnan sat in the dock and chatted for a while. Their nervousness was relieved and they couldn't help but look at Gu Nianji. Seeing that she was the only one at the plaintiff's stand and there wasn't even a witness, Luo Jialan couldn't help but want to laugh. She lowered her eyes and thought for a while. She stood up from her seat and said to Kai Xingnan, I'll go talk to her. Kai Xingnan stopped her and said unhappily, don't complicate matters. We're already on opposite sides. What's the use of your words? Don't tell me she'll immediately give up suing you? Luo Jialan raised the corners of her eyes and smiled. How do you know it won't work if you haven't tried? Besides, would she let us off if I didn't embarrass her? It would be a waste not to say it at this time. If she's unhappy, I'll be happy. She was so insistent that Kai Xingnan had nothing to say. She raised her hand. It's up to you. You can scold or mock her, but don't say a word about the important things. I know. Luo Jialan got Kai Xingnan's permission and came to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji looked up at her. Miss Luo, what can I do for you? I'm fine. I'm just here to see how stubborn you can be. Luo Jialan crossed her arms and looked down at Gu Nianji. If you want to stop, I can give you a chance at any time. To tell you the truth, it's really hard to win this case. Why do you have to fight to the death? We can settle out of court. Settling out of court was a professional term that Luo Jialan had heard from Kai Xingnan. It didn't refer to her case, but she felt that she could give it a try. If Gu Nianji agreed to settle out of court, Luo Jialan was willing to give half of the trust fund as compensation. Gu Nianji smiled. Settle out of court? Unfortunately, there's no such thing as settling out of court in criminal cases. Only civil cases can settle out of court. If you heard this professional term from Kai Xingnan, I can tell you that you've been misled. Luo Jialan blushed. Kai Xingnan had said that settling out of court didn't apply to her case. At the time she didn't understand, but she didn't ask much. She just subconsciously felt that there was a way, so why not give it a try? She had never thought that settling out of court didn't apply to criminal cases. She returned to her seat dejectedly, extremely embarrassed and annoyed. Kai Xingnan looked at Luo Jialan and knew that she had been defeated by Gun Yanji, but she didn't care. Anyway, she had already done her duty to remind her. There was nothing she could do if she didn't listen. Kai Xingnan was also focused on her preparations. 5 minutes before the start of the trial, Song Jining finally walked in. At the same time, her ex-husband, General Huo Guanchen, followed her in. The two witnesses Kai Xingnan had called, Auntie Yu and Auntie Xing, also came in. They timidly glanced at Song Jining and Huo Guanchen, then sat down in the gallery on Luo Jialan's side. Gun Yanji saw that Song Jining had arrived and quickly got up to welcome her. "Miss Song, please sit here." Song Jining would sit with her. Huo Guanchen was one of the witnesses. He sat in the gallery behind the plaintiff's stand, facing Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu from afar. Gun Yanji secretly gave Song Jining a thumbs up. She hadn't thought that Huo Guanchen would be willing to be a witness for Song Jining, but Song Jining told her that this was a separate matter. Huo Guanchen had to be a witness for her in this matter, so she called Huo Guanchen and it was done. Not long after, the judge, the prosecutor, the clerk, and the others also came in and sat down in their respective seats. At the same time, the military also sent someone to attend the hearing. Because the defendant in this case was Luo Jialan, her father, Huo Guanyuan, was a martyr in the military. Although she wasn't Huo Guanyuan's biological daughter, her mother, Luo Xinxue, was Huo Guanyuan's wife, so she also had the right to enjoy the legacy of Huo Guanyuan's identity. This was Kai Xingnan's idea for her. She said that her background couldn't be compared to Huo Xiaoheng's and she was an orphan. If she fought a lawsuit with them, she wouldn't even know how she died. So she advised her to make an official report to the military and asked them to attend the trial to intimidate Gun Yanji. Gun Yanji wasn't the only one with a military background. Luo Jialan raised her head and thought proudly she did too. The military usually didn't care about these things, but Luo Jialan had specially written an application and even tagged their official blog. In addition, a group of Internet Water Army was making a ruckus below. If they ignored it, it would be heartless and unreasonable. After weighing the pros and cons, the military still sent someone to attend the hearing. However, they specifically expressed the military's request for impartiality, fairness, and the desire to restore the truth as soon as possible. Luo Jialan looked at the 4 tall and strong soldiers sitting in the seats behind her in a standard posture. She pursed her lips and thought to herself, why did they appear at this time? What were they doing earlier? If they had come to protect her earlier, she wouldn't have been bullied so badly by the Hua family and Gun Yanji. This was today's second update, Chapter 1352, What Were You Doing Earlier? The third update was at 9 p.m., and the monthly ticket was 5,100. Chapter 1363. Luo Jialan was even more confident and sat up straighter. At that moment, the heavy door of court number 1 closed silently. It was time for the trial. The judge knocked the gavel at the head of the table and solemnly announced, "The trial of the prosecutor's office accusing Luo Jialan of intentional homicide has officially begun. Now check the identities of the plaintiff and the defendant." Because it was a felony, it was necessary to verify their identities in court. In addition to checking fingerprints and irises, they also took each other's blood for DNA testing. The latter took a longer time, but it was also one of the pieces of evidence that had to be filed. The court nurse came over and took a drop of blood from each of Luo Jialan and Song Jining and put it in a small test tube. The fingerprints match, the irises match, and the DNA test results will be released in a few days. Now, I announce that the trial has begun. Prosecutor, you can start with the briefing. The judge looked at the test report and signed his name. At the same time, he asked the prosecutor to brief the case. The prosecutor sat together with Gun Yanji and Song Jining, but he sat on the far left. Song Jining sat in the middle and Gun Yanji sat on the far right. When the judge asked the prosecutor to stand up and brief the case, he stood up calmly. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen in the courtroom, hello. I am the prosecutor who accused Luo Jialan of intentional homicide. The defendant, Ms. Luo Jialan, is accused of attempting to harm Ms. Song Jining to death over the past 10 years when she was taking care of her seriously injured and delirious self. The defendant, Luo Jialan, has a motive and conduct. Therefore, our court has filed a case to charge Luo Jialan with intentional homicide against Ms. Song Jining. After the prosecutor's brief statement, the judge looked at Luo Jialan and Kai Xingnan, who were in the dock. Do you agree with the prosecutor's charges? Of course they didn't agree. It was just a question from the judge according to procedure. Kai Xingnan stood up calmly with a proper smile on her face and said, Your Honor, we don't agree with the prosecutor's charges. As Ms. Luo Jialan's lawyer, I want to defend Ms. Luo Jialan's innocence. The judge nodded and asked her to sit down. He then looked at the plaintiff's seat and asked, "Prosecutor, what do you have to say?" The prosecutor was a public official of the prosecutor's office, but for this case the prosecutor had already sent their own prosecution lawyer, Gu Nianji. Therefore the prosecutor would not argue directly with the defendant. He stood up and said, "This court has already entrusted the prosecution's lawyer in this case to the plaintiff's lawyer, Ms. Gu Nianji. Please allow the court to approve it." The judge looked at Gu Nianji's information and nodded in agreement. "Prosecution lawyer, please state your case." Gu Nianji also stood up and politely nodded to the people in the courtroom. She said, "On behalf of the prosecutor's office and the plaintiff, Ms. Song Jining, I accuse the defendant, Luo Jialan. Over the past 10 years she has deliberately planned to murder a woman, Song Jining, who has suffered severe brain trauma to the point of insanity and has no ability to act on her own." Luo Jialan glanced sideways at Song Jining, who was sitting upright and charming. She felt disdain from the bottom of her heart. In fact, it was hard for her to take Song Jining seriously. Although Song Jining had recovered for Luo Jialan for the past 10 years, Song Jining had always been that silly girl who thought that she was always 18 years old and was at her mercy. In the past 10 years she had seen Song Jining's husband, Huo Guanchen, alienated. Although they were under the same roof, he had ignored Song Jining and had even deliberately indulged himself in torturing Song Jining. Song Jining's son, Huo Xiaoheng, had also left. The number of times he had returned home in the past 10 years could be counted on one hand. In the past 7 years he had not returned home even once, except for last Christmas. How could she think that Huo Xiaoheng took Song Jining seriously as his mother? Although Luo Jialan had also understood Huo Xiaoheng's 10-year plan to defeat the enemy with one move and finally send Bai Jini to prison during Bai Jini's case at the beginning of last year, she still stubbornly believed that Huo Xiaoheng had done that to seek justice for his mother, Luo Xinxue. Song Jining had also benefited from it. So even when she sat in the dock in court, Luo Jialan was still in disbelief. She glanced at Gu Nianji, and a trace of resentment flashed in her eyes. It was all because of her. Because Gu Nianji had insisted on avenging Song Jining, Huo Xiaoheng had allowed her to do as she pleased. Luo Jialan didn't believe a word of Huo Xiaoheng's motherly love for Song Jining. Huo Xiaoheng had never called Song Jining mother or mom for so many years. He only called her Ms. Song. Luo Jialan knew that her judgment was correct. She told Kai Xingnan all of this in detail. When she heard so many secrets of the Huo family, Kai Xingnan was overjoyed and listened very seriously. She even used the excuse of keeping a file as evidence to not only record in video, but also wrote a written document for Luo Jialan to sign with her fingerprint to prove that everything was true. After understanding all aspects of the situation, Kai Xingnan and her father, Kai Sumin, deliberated and checked in many ways before finally deciding on a defense plan. Defending a murder case was nothing more than the 3 ironclad rules. As long as it was used properly, all murder was not a crime. Gu Nianji calmly stood up from the plaintiff's stand and continued to speak with assurance. 17 years ago, Miss Song Jining was seriously injured in an experiment, causing damage to parts of her brain. Her memory and cognition were severely impaired. After being verified by professional psychologists, she was indeed a severely mentally ill patient with no ability to act. 10 years ago, Ms. Luo Jialan, who was still called Huo Jialan, was the adopted daughter of the martyr Huo Guanyuan. The martyr Huo Guanyuan was the elder brother of Ms. Song Jining's ex-husband, Mr. Huo Guanchen. In other words, Ms. Luo Jialan was Ms. Song Jining's niece at that time. 10 years ago, Ms. Luo Jialan's mother, Luo Xinxue, was murdered by Bai Jini. Luo Jialan left her mother in the lurch and let her die. Objection. Bai Jini and Luo Xinxue's case has nothing to do with this case. Please don't change the subject, lawyer. Kai Xingnan heard Gu Nianji mention the death of Luo Jialan's biological mother, Luo Xinxue, and quickly stopped her. In Kai Xingnan's opinion, this was the most passive part of Luo Jialan. In the eyes of many people, leaving her mother in the lurch was a sign of ruthlessness. If Gu Nianji was allowed to put this point of view into the minds of the judge and the military personnel who were listening, it would be much more difficult for her to argue later. Gu Nianji was interrupted by Kai Xingnan, so she paused for a moment before continuing, "Your Honor, I will prove that these two cases are related. Bai Jini has already been sentenced. Lawyer, do you not understand what no second trial means? In that case, my client was just an important witness, and she was a poor daughter who was deceived by Bai Jini and watched her biological mother die. Her conscience was already tormented and troubled by the matter. I asked the prosecution lawyer to stop using this matter to agitate my client's emotions. Luo Jialan burst into tears. She cried as soon as she said she would. Tears flowed all over her face and her grief was real. Some people already looked like they couldn't bear it. Gunyinji was still very calm. She said, "Lawyer Kai, first of all, the no second trial situation only applies to the defendant who has been sentenced. In other words, you might be able to raise this principle for the defendant in that case by genie, but it doesn't apply at all to Luo Jialan, who was only a tainted witness at the time. Secondly, our Wuxia Empire doesn't have the principle of no second trial. Our principle is to seek truth from facts and correct mistakes. So the court doesn't need to pay attention to your proposal of no second trial." Kai Xingnan's face was burning. It was as if she had been slapped in the face in court. She hadn't expected Gunyinji to react so quickly. She knew all kinds of rules like the back of her hand, and could come up with conceptual theories at will. The corners of her mouth twitched a few times and she sat down reluctantly. She was 10 times more alert, and continued to listen attentively, trying to find loopholes in Gunyinji's statement. This was the third update of the day, Chapter 1353, The One Who Smoked You. Monthly votes of 5,100 plus updates have been delivered. P.S. I've been so busy recently. After the holidays I realized that it was already the end of the month. I'm seriously asking for a wave of monthly votes. I didn't ask for it seriously in the past. Good night, sweethearts. Chapter 1364. Luo Jialan couldn't cry anymore. She lowered her head and sobbed softly. Her shoulders trembled and she looked pitiful. Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu, who were sitting in the gallery, felt sorry for Gunyinji. They felt that Gunyinji was such a bully. Look, Miss Huo was so angry that she was crying. Gunyinji glanced at Luo Jialan and continued calmly. After the defendant Luo Jialan's mother, Luo Xinxue, was murdered, the Hua family had no other mistress to take care of Song Jining, so the defendant Luo Jialan volunteered to take over the job. Actually, the Hua family still had the Zhang family at the time, but Hua Guanchen couldn't send his wife to the Zhang family to take care of. Therefore, in comparison, Luo Jialan, who was 18 at the time, was the best choice. Moreover, Song Jining's psychiatrist at that time was Bai Jini, and she had also recommended Luo Jialan to take over the responsibility of taking care of Song Jining. At that time, Luo Jialan had just entered university, so she moved back from the school dormitory. She no longer stayed in the dormitory but studied on the day, so that it would be more convenient for her to take care of Song Jining. However, she didn't have to take care of Song Jining like Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu. Like her mother Luo Xingxue, she was only responsible for managing the housekeepers who took care of Song Jining, such as Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu. Therefore, she could attend university on a part-time basis and come back to supervise the housekeeping staff during every class. Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu were the housekeepers that Luo Jialan had personally changed for Song Jining after she took over. The housekeeper who had taken care of Song Jining wasn't Auntie Xing or Auntie Yu. When Luo Jialan heard this, her heart skipped a beat and she stopped sobbing. It's normal for a niece to take care of a sick aunt, but the Hua family didn't expect that this niece, who kept calling her aunt, had ulterior motives. In order to steal the Hua family's assets, she hid her true identity and plotted to kill Song Jining. Kai Xingnan perked up at this moment. The corners of her mouth curled into a smile, and her eyes flashed with mockery. She looked at Gun Yanji meaningfully and raised her hand to say, "Objection. The prosecuting attorney slandered my client by substituting imagination for evidence. My client did not have the motive to murder Miss Song Jining. I have a witness to testify." As she said this, it was time to cross-examine the witnesses on both sides. The judge nodded and said expressionlessly, "The objection is sustained. Counsel for the prosecution, please be careful with your statements. Do not get too personal." Gun Yanji pursed her lips and slowly sat down. When the judge saw that Gun Yanji didn't object, he rapped his gavel and said, "Next, the prosecution and defense will cross-examine their witnesses. Ask the witness to come forward, verify his identity, swear an oath, and then go to the next room to be summoned." Today was the first day of the trial. The prosecution had only brought one witness, Hua Guanchen. The defendant brought two witnesses, Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu. After they left the Hua family, they had been monitored by the Special Operations Forces. However, Kai Xingnan found them and persuaded them to be witnesses for Luo Jialan. After careful consideration they agreed. As they spoke, a few staff members came over with forms and documents to verify the identities of Hua Guanchen, Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu. They also had to verify their fingerprints, irises, and DNA to prevent false witnesses. Moreover, lawyers from both sides had to approve these test results before they could officially testify in court. The results of the DNA test would be delayed for a few days, but the results of the fingerprints and irises would be immediately available. Gun Yanji and Kai Xingnan each looked at the identity verification materials of each other's witnesses and signed each other's forms to show that they approved of the witness's identity. After the witness's identity was verified, the court staff led them to the room next to the court to wait for the summons. They were watched by a special person here. They couldn't talk to each other, nor could they look at their phones or computers. Basically, they could only sit there or read some legal magazines and statutes that had been placed in the room beforehand. After the witness left, the judge once again confirmed their intentions with the prosecution and defense. Gun Yanji said, "We insist on charging Luo Jialan with intentional homicide. There's no change." Kai Xingnan also said, "I plead not guilty for my client. There's no change." This meant that she wanted to continue the lawsuit. The judge raised his hand and said, "Then the prosecution will begin to call the witnesses." This was also the usual practice of the court. First, the prosecution, who was the plaintiff, would state their accusations, then list the evidence. Finally, they would use logic to string the evidence together into a convincing chain of evidence to prove their accusations. Then it would be the defense's turn to refute the prosecution's accusations. Whether it was a civil lawsuit or a criminal lawsuit, one of the most important principles in determining the burden of proof was that whoever made the claim would bear the burden of proof. For example, if one were to accuse the other party of murder, of course one would have to produce evidence to prove that the other party committed murder, not ask the other party to prove that they didn't commit murder. It was just like when one said that one's neighbor had killed someone. Whether one said it in front of a reporter in public or in private in a WeChat group, one had to produce evidence to prove that one's neighbor had indeed killed someone. There was still the vitality of youth and maturity, but there was a bit more of a foundation of time than pure youth, which made their beauty even more thought-provoking. If one didn't know them and only looked at the two people in the courtroom, no one would have guessed that Hua Guanchen was only 2 years older than Song Jining. Moreover, the two of them had been married for many years and had a son who was about to turn 30. Hua Guanchen stood calmly in the witness stand and swore, "I swear that I'm telling the truth and only the truth." The judge nodded and raised his hand towards Gun Yanji. "The prosecution's lawyer may begin questioning." Gu Nianji bowed to the judge and walked out from behind the plaintiff's stand. She walked up to Huo Guanchen and looked him up and down. Please state your identity. Huo Guanchen said calmly, My name is Huo Guanchen, a general in the military. I'm Miss Song Jinning's ex-husband. We've been married for many years and have an adult son. The smile on Gu Nianji's lips was faintly discernible. She asked, Mr. Huo Guanchen, may I ask why Miss Song Jinning was so seriously injured that she became insane? Kai Xingnan immediately raised her hand. Objection. This question has nothing to do with this case. Gu Nianji looked at the judge. Your Honor, this question has a lot to do with this case. I will prove it. The judge looked at her for a while and nodded reluctantly. The prosecution's lawyer should try to be concise. Don't ask questions that have nothing to do with the case. Gu Nianji took a deep breath and said, Okay, Your Honor. She turned to Huo Guanchen. Mr. Huo Guanchen, please tell us the reason why Song Jinning was seriously injured and the subsequent treatment. Huo Guanchen looked deeply at Song Jinning and said, It was 17 years ago. Song Jinning and her father, academician Song Haichuan's experiment had an accident. Her father and my older brother both died in that accident. Gu Nianji immediately interrupted him. May I ask, Mr. Hua, who is your older brother? Kai Xingnan narrowed her eyes. So this was the reason why Gu Nianji insisted on asking why Song Jinning was injured. She raised her hand again decisively. Objection. The prosecution's lawyer has wasted too much time interrogating too many people who have nothing to do with this case. Before the judge could make a decision, Gu Nianji immediately retorted, Lawyer Kai, there is a cause and effect to intentional homicide. We are not accusing Luo Jialan of killing someone out of impulse. We are accusing her of deliberate intentional homicide. Of course, it is necessary to explain the cause and effect to Your Honor and all the people in the courtroom. You have repeatedly interrupted our proof of Luo Jialan's intention to kill someone. What are your intentions? May I ask if you are intentionally obstructing justice? Gu Nianji then turned to the judge. Your Honor, I request that the defendant's lawyer be limited to the number of times she objects. She has seriously interfered with the questioning between me and my witness, and is suspected of obstructing justice. The judge was also a little dissatisfied with Kai Xingnan's repeated objections. However, he did not side with Gu Nianji. Instead, he said to Kai Xingnan, Lawyer Kai, if you have a different opinion, you can cross-examine the witness. You don't have to repeatedly interrupt the prosecution's lawyer. Kai Xingnan was pleased with herself and said with a serious face, Okay, Your Honor, but I still have to insist that the prosecution's lawyer is too emotional and will seriously affect everyone's judgment. Gu Nianji couldn't help chuckling. Lawyer Kai, are you worried that Your Honor doesn't have enough legal literacy and will be misled by my emotions? Kai Xingnan's eyes widened. This was clearly sowing discord. She was too cunning. This is the first update of the day, Chapter 1354, Personal Emotions. Can you send the Major General to the top 10 of the monthly votes? There's only one place left, it seems like QAQ. I'll try my best to watch the third update. I'll release it together at the second and third updates at night. You should feel better to watch it together. The second update will be at 8 o'clock in the evening, and the third update will be at 9 o'clock. P.S. Thank you to the leader of Enigma Yangxi for your 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Mwah. Chapter 1365. Of course that's not what I meant. Lawyer Gu, don't overthink it. Kai Xingnan quickly glanced at the judge. Seeing that the judge was still calm and expressionless, her heart calmed down slightly. Gu Nianji smiled and stopped there. She stopped mocking Kai Xingnan and continued to interrogate Huo Guanchen. Mr. Huo Guanchen, you still haven't answered me. Who is your older brother? Huo Guanchen said in a low voice, My older brother, Huo Guanyuan, was also a soldier and a martyr. He died in that experimental accident. Gu Nianji glanced at Luo Jialan. May I ask what your brother, Huo Guanyuan, has to do with the defendant? He is Luo Jialan's father. The judge looked up at Luo Jialan. Luo Jialan's heart missed a beat. What did Gu Nianji mean by dragging her father into this? Gu Nianji ignored her and asked Huo Guanchen directly, Then why is Luo Jialan's surname Luo and not Hua? Isn't she Huo Guanyuan's daughter? Luo Jialan gritted her teeth. Wasn't he asking the obvious? He pretending. Huo Guanchen replied calmly, Her name used to be Huo Jialan. She's always been my eldest brother's daughter and my niece. After Bai Jini's case last year, we found out that she wasn't my brother's biological daughter. This year, she moved her household registration out of the Hua family and changed her surname to her mother's, Luo Xinshue's. Gu Nianji nodded. Do you know why? Hua Guanchen glared at Gu Nianji and had the same thought as Luo Jialan. Wasn't he asking the obvious? However, Gu Nianji was the prosecution's lawyer, and Hua Guanchen was the witness. Even if Gu Nianji knew about this, she couldn't say it out loud. It had to be said by a witness for it to have legal effect. Hua Guanchen frowned. After a while, he shook his head and said, I'm sorry. I don't know why she changed her surname, nor do I know why she moved out of the Hua family's household registration. But she is already of age and has the right to do such a thing. He could guess why, but Luo Jialan had never admitted it and he couldn't tell her his guess as a fact. Gu Nianji looked at him deeply. Mr. Hua Guanchen, do you really not know? Luo Jialan clenched her fists and her fingernails dug into her palms. She looked at Hua Guanchen nervously, afraid that he would reveal that she wanted to fake their marriage. Although it had nothing to do with the case, it was too embarrassing. She didn't want too many people to know about it. Hua Guanchen didn't look at her, but he didn't mention it either. Gu Nianji saw that Hua Guanchen didn't say anything, but she didn't mind and continued to ask. Mr. Hua Guanchen, you said that in that experiment accident, everyone else died and only Madame Song Jining survived. I heard that your brother could have escaped, but in order to save Madame Song and Madame Song's father, he gave them hope of survival and left the consequences of death to himself. Is that true? Hua Guanchen pursed his lips even more tightly. Kai Xingnan almost burst out laughing when she heard Gu Nianji's question. What kind of problem was this? Even Kai Xingnan, who had just arrived in Huaxia not long ago, knew the details of Bai Jini's lawsuit. She also knew that Hua Guanyuan had a crush on Song Jining. This matter was a sore point for Hua Guanchen, and Gu Nianji still asked him this question in public. Tiske, she really didn't know how she had won all those lawsuits in the past. At that moment, Kai Xingnan even thought that Gu Nianji had won all those lawsuits because He Zhichu had helped her behind the scenes, right? This time, He Zhichu had let it go and Gu Nianji had revealed her true colors. Kai Xingnan tilted her head and looked at Gu Nianji. Her eyes were like searchlights, and she wished she could see through Gu Nianji's appearance and see through her heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidneys. Gu Nianji saw that Hua Guanchen didn't speak, so she said gently, this matter is very important. It's so important that we are seeking justice for Madame Song Jining. She has been severely mentally abused for 10 years, and the goal was to kill her right under your nose. Such a blatant provocation and blatant malice. Don't you want to seek justice for her? Hua Guanchen couldn't refuse this request. So even though that matter was a thorn in his heart, he still spoke. When the experiment accident happened, there was surveillance video that proved that my older brother pushed Song Jining and her father, Song Haichuan, out of the experimental building. Hua Guanchen told the truth, then my older brother continued to go back to save people. Academician Song Haichuan also ignored the danger and returned to the experimental building, but was killed by the explosion at the entrance of the building. Song Jining was pushed even further. She fell to the ground and was quickly knocked out by the huge explosion that followed. It was later confirmed that the explosion still affected her brain and caused physical damage. After she woke up from her coma, she began to lose her memory. Every day she would forget what happened the day before, and every day she only remembered that she was 18 years old. That's why Hua Guanyuan sacrificed himself to save Song Jining and academician Song Haichuan. You just have to answer yes or no. Gu Nianji's expression was very serious. Hua Guanchen choked on her words and replied resentfully, yes. This was irrefutable. At that time, there were many security measures around the experimental building. Not only were there security personnel and armed soldiers on duty, but there were also cameras everywhere which recorded the situation at that time. A few cameras located far away were spared and captured the scene of Hua Guanyuan pushing Song Jining and Song Haichuan out at the entrance of the experimental building. Behind them was black smoke, flames and mushroom clouds. May I ask who knows about Hua Guanyuan's sacrifice? Gu Nianji continued to ask. Very few people know. Gu Nianji thought about it. Specifically, does anyone know? For example, Bai Jini? For example, your father, Hua Xuanong? Hua Guanchen looked down. These two people know. Gu Nianji looked down at her information and concluded, in Bai Jini's case, Luo Jialan also admitted that she had always known that her father wasn't missing at all. You were all lying to her and her mother. She said that her father died trying to protect that bitch. Not even his bones were left. Gu Nianji emphasized the word, B****. From Luo Jialan's reaction in Bai Jini's case, She hated Song Jining deeply and hated her for causing her to lose her father. This was the first fuse that Luo Jialan intended to kill Song Jining. When Kai Xingnan heard this, she couldn't take it anymore. She stood up and said, "Objection. The prosecution lawyer is making senseless accusations. Hua Guanyuan died to save Song Jining, but that doesn't constitute a reason for my client to kill Song Jining." Gun Yanji laughed. "Lawyer Kai, don't be in a hurry to object. I said that this was the first fuse. I didn't say that this was the direct reason for Luo Jialan's killing intent. Of course, it wasn't easy to kill someone. However, a great deal of killing intent was formed from the accumulation of daily dissatisfaction." The judge was silent for a moment, then said, "Objection overruled." The prosecution lawyer continues. "But, prosecution lawyer, please watch your pace. Don't talk too much about unrelated things." Gun Yanji smiled and said, "Thank you, Your Honor. I will soon prove that this matter is related to murder." The judge raised his hand and gestured for her to speak. Gun Yanji pulled up the information on her laptop and connected it to the audiovisual equipment for the court. The large projection screen on the wall on one side of the courtroom slowly descended. Gun Yanji put up the PowerPoint she had made. This was her summary of Baijini's case. "Everyone please take a look. This is the transcript and result of the trial where the Imperial Capital Procuratorate accused Baijini of intentional homicide last year. In that lawsuit, there was evidence that Luo Jialan wasn't Hua Guanyuan's biological daughter, and that she didn't help her dying mother." Gun Yanji paused and stared at Luo Jialan. Why would Luo Jialan, who claimed to love her mother very much and didn't hesitate to torture another innocent person in order to avenge her mother, leave her dying mother in the lurch? In other words, what exactly happened at that time that made Luo Jialan not even help her dying mother? Gun Yanji slowly looked at Luo Jialan with a faint smile on her lips. She looked very infuriating. Luo Jialan trembled so much that her teeth ached. She couldn't restrain herself. If she hadn't been in the dock and being stared at by the bailiff, she would have pounced on Gun Yanji and beaten her up. The smile on her face was really asking for a beating. This was the second update of the day, Chapter 1355, really asking for a beating. There was a third update at 9 p.m., and an additional update of 5,400 for the monthly ticket. P.S. There were minor changes to the details of the previous chapters 1353 and 1354. Kiss kiss. To possess or get close to other women or men, killing is also one of the most common motives. The third is antisocial aggression. This includes more content such as revenge, jealousy, fear, and so on. Gun Yanji looked at Luo Jialan again, her sharp gaze heavy and cold. And Luo Jialan has almost all of these three criminal motives. First of all, Hua Guanyuan left behind a huge trust fund. In the absence of a will, she was the first in line to inherit. If people found out that she wasn't related to Hua Guanyuan by blood, even if they were married and adopted, she would still be criticized. It was even possible that the Hua family would sue her for the inheritance. She had to put an end to this possibility and not let people know that she wasn't related to Hua Guanyuan by blood. She was asking for money. Second, the long-term hatred, uneasiness, and fear had distorted the defendant Luo Jialan's mind. She had the psychological factor of torturing and abusing Miss Song Jining. And when she took over the responsibility of taking care of Song Jining, she had the conditions to directly abuse and kill her. The psychological factors and external conditions are all in line, proving that the defendant Luo Jialan had the motive to intentionally kill Miss Song Jining. The video that Gun Yanji played of Luo Jialan's performance at Baijini's last trial could be said to be solid evidence that she had the intention to kill Song Jining. In fact, when she was suing Baijini, there was already enough evidence to sue Luo Jialan. However, at that time, Grandfather Hua suddenly appeared to protect Luo Jialan and even immediately took her to the Xie family's manor in Europe to relax. The subsequent case had to be temporarily put on hold. Gun Yanji now knew why Grandfather Hua had done this. However, Grandfather Hua couldn't even protect himself now, so it was impossible for him to save Luo Jialan again. Moreover, the truth about Hua Guanyuan's will had already been revealed, so there was no need for Grandfather Hua to protect Luo Jialan as a shield anymore. Now that we have the motive, let's look at her criminal behavior. Gun Yanji pulled out a few other PowerPoint slides. Everyone please take a look. This is the psychological diagnosis made by the psychiatrist on Miss Song Jining during Baijini's case last year, and the professional attending doctor's diagnosis of Miss Song Jining's physical health. From these two diagnoses, We can see that Luo Jialan has taken care of Ms. Song Jining for 10 years, causing Ms. Song Jining's mental and physical health to decline sharply. Here's a health examination report that was produced 10 years ago. At that time, although Ms. Song Jining was also delirious, all her physical indicators were very normal, even exceeding the health of an ordinary person. And 10 years later, Ms. Song Jining's weight, heartbeat, blood pressure and immunity all dropped to a critical state. This kind of situation doesn't need to continue for another 10 years. In another year or two, Ms. Song Jining will die due to the overall deterioration of her health. Also, for a mental patient, her mental state can greatly affect her physical condition. This has been proven by the academic community. And Song Jining's mental state, under long-term environmental pressure and psychological suggestion, is already likely to develop into depression. At this point, Gu Nianji looked at Luo Jialan again. What is depression? Depression is the mental illness with the highest suicide rate. Luo Jialan, you forced a mental patient who was already delirious to almost develop depression, and you still say you didn't kill someone on purpose. To kill someone on purpose, you don't have to stab a knife into the other party's body. There are plenty of knives that kill without spilling blood. Gu Nianji used the PowerPoint to show the dark and crowded style of Song Jining's small attic room. Over the years, Song Jining's food, clothing and accommodation had been treated, as well as the way Song Jining had been taken care of in isolation from the rest of the world. All of this showed the malicious motives of the mastermind behind this. All of this was set up by you. It was all done under your instructions. And you still say you didn't want to kill Ms. Song Jining? Gu Nianji was aggressive. She explained her reasoning layer by layer, and with the help of the evidence she had unknowingly convinced many people in the courtroom. Even the judge, who had been expressionless the whole time, nodded slightly. Gu Nianji smiled slightly and nodded to the people in the courtroom. I'm done. Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me the opportunity to seek justice for Ms. Song Jining. Thank you, everyone. The judge looked at Kai Xingnan. Defense lawyer, do you agree with the prosecution's charges? Kai Xingnan took a deep breath and thought it was time for her to go on stage. She stood up and said calmly, I don't agree. This was the third watch of the day, chapter 1356, I don't agree. The monthly vote of 5,400 was delivered. Do you want me to roll around and beg for monthly votes? I'm already old, my old arms and legs can't move anymore. Kiss, kiss. If the defendant's lawyer continues to pry into my privacy like a paparazzi, I'm going to file a complaint with the lawyer's license authority. Kai Xingnan did not wait for the judge to speak and immediately said quickly, Your Honor, this matter is also closely related to this case. I can prove it. The judge looked down at the documents and evidence she had submitted in advance and nodded. Defense counsel, please get to the point quickly. Kai Xingnan glanced at Gu Nianji with a smile, then retracted her gaze and looked at Huo Guanchen. She said, If you don't answer, I'll take it as a yes. Huo Guanchen nodded. Yes, my brother knew Song Jining first. It's no secret. Kai Xingnan nodded. Later you met Miss Song Jining and began to pursue her. Miss Song Jining once swayed between you and your brother. Objection. Gu Nianji stood up again, her expression solemn. The defendant's lawyer's question just now has already slandered my client's reputation. I reserve the right to sue the defendant's lawyer. Lawyer Gu, I have evidence for every word I say. Isn't this considered obstructing justice? Kai Xingnan raised an eyebrow with an extremely serious expression. Evidence? May I ask where you got the evidence to prove that my client swayed between us more than 30 years ago? Did you open your heavenly eye, or did you use a time machine to go back in time and see it with your own eyes? Maybe you even took a small video? Can you share it with us? Gu Nianji rebutted Kai Xingnan eloquently, not letting up at all. Kai Xingnan said calmly, I heard about it from someone who knew them. You can believe it or not. But Huo Guanyuan's belongings contain love letters to Song Jining. You can't deny that, can you? She went around in a big circle, but the main point was still the love letters that Huo Guanyuan had written to Song Jining. These love letters had been exposed during Bai Jini's case. It was obvious that Kai Xingnan was still using those love letters as an excuse. Gu Nianji smiled. I'm sorry, I do want to deny it. Lawyer Kai didn't personally attend the trial at that time, so she probably doesn't know that I had already refuted those love letters. Because there was no header on them, it was impossible to tell who they were written to. You've blamed all of them on my client. It seems like you've been too deeply influenced by Bai Jini and Luo Jialan, because that's what they think. Is that so? I think Lawyer Gu, you can deceive yourself, but you can't expect us to deceive ourselves like you. These love letters were actually written by Huo Guanyuan to Song Jining. Otherwise, why would your witness fly into a rage when he saw those love letters? He even filed for divorce with Song Jining despite her being seriously ill at the time? Kai Xingnan closed her translucent yellow folder and turned to look at the head of the courtroom. Your Honor, the truth is that Mr. Huo Guanshan couldn't stand the ambiguous relationship between his ex-wife and his brother, so he filed for divorce. This was indeed the truth. Even Gun Yanji couldn't deny it. She glared at Kai Xingnan angrily, her lips opening and closing silently as she said, "Despicable." Kai Xingnan smiled and made a calm-down gesture at her. Gun Yanji seemed to be so angry that she couldn't speak. She sat down heavily, but when she lowered her head and lowered her eyes, a glint flashed across her eyes. Kai Xingnan didn't see the change in Gun Yanji's expression. With the joy of suppressing Gun Yanji's aura for the first time, Kai Xingnan turned around and said, "And after Mr. Huo Guanshan divorced Ms. Song Jining, he didn't ask her to move out of the Huo family. Instead, she continued to live in the Huo family. Mr. Huo Guanshan was still responsible for the manpower and expenses to take care of her. At that time, many people praised him for being affectionate and not forgetting to take care of his seriously ill wife. But in private he had already hooked up with Song Jining's best friend, Bai Jini. He betrayed his wife. So can the words of such a person really be trusted? I didn't. Huo Guanshan objected in a low voice. When I was with Bai Jini, I had already divorced Song Jining. Really? Kai Xingnan shook her head with a smile. But according to what I know, Bai Jini personally said that when you had sex with her for the first time, you hadn't officially divorced her. Huo Guanshan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His first time with Bai Jini, to put it bluntly, was because he had been tricked by Bai Jini, but he was a man. Even if he had been tricked by a woman, it was his own fault. It couldn't be that a woman had pointed a gun at him and asked him to have sex with her. Drunken sex was also messed up. Song Jining was sitting in the plaintiff's seat below. What had happened when she was unconscious back then had been mercilessly exposed by Kai Xingnan in front of her. Not only was Huo Guanshan extremely embarrassed, but Song Jining's cheeks were also flushed. She didn't know if it was out of anger or anger. Gun Yanji was a little dumbfounded. She had really underestimated Kai Xingnan's professionalism. She had actually gotten such a thing out of Bai Jini. Gun Yanji had only gotten one sentence out of Bai Jini about Luo Jialan's background. However, Kai Xingnan had gotten all the secrets about her and Huo Guanshan from Bai Jini. Gun Yanji didn't know whether to say 666 or laugh out loud. 23333, Kai Xingnan continued. So, Mr. Huo Guanshan, after you betrayed your seriously ill wife, you continued to raise your divorced wife at home. You even let my client, Miss Luo Jialan, who was only 18 years old at the time, take over the responsibility of taking care of your ex-wife. What were your intentions? Huo Guanshan raised his head and didn't dare to look at Song Jining's face. He took a deep breath and said, although I divorced Song Jining, she was seriously ill at the time, and her family didn't have any immediate family members. I couldn't let her leave the Huo family. Then should I praise you for being affectionate and loyal? Or should I praise you for being a pervert? Kai Xingnan's tone changed and her expression became sharper. During the years when Song Jining was seriously ill, you peeped at her whenever you had time and you didn't let her know. If my client really abused Miss Song Jining to the point of death, why didn't you say a word? Or were you the one who wanted to kill Song Jining? Kai Xingnan's purge was really aggressive. Not only did she start with Huo Guanshan's personal privacy to question Huo Guanshan's character and integrity, thus doubting the credibility of his testimony, but she also threw a huge trap. She raised her head and looked at the solemn judge. Your Honor, Mr. Huo Guanshan was jealous of his ex-wife and brother's ambiguous relationship, and he put his ex-wife, who was incapacitated, in front of him. Can I also prove that Mr. Huo Guanshan also had a motive for the crime, and even had the conditions to commit the crime, so it was also possible that he had the intention to kill? Don't forget, the motive that Lawyer Gu mentioned before, the possessiveness between a man and a woman, is also one of the most important motives for the crime. Gun Yanji's heart skipped a beat. Kai Xingnan had really taken a huge step. She had gone from questioning the witness to shifting the blame to another suspect. Moreover, she had pinned the two procedures on the same person. If she took too big a step, she could easily pull her balls, even though Kai Xingnan didn't have any balls. Gun Yanji stood up calmly and said, objection. Even according to the defendant's lawyer, it can only prove that Mr. Huo Guanshan loved Miss Song Jining deeply. If he really wanted her life, he could have kicked her out of the Hua family after the divorce and ignored her. I guarantee that Song Jining wouldn't have survived the winter at that time. Since he could have taken Song Jining's life so easily and clearly without any legal responsibility, why did he have to spend money, effort and energy to visit her so often? Gu Nianji retorted without hesitation. Although in the eyes of the defendant's lawyer Mr. Hua Guanchen didn't go to visit his seriously ill ex-wife, but peeping. TSK as expected, the world you see is the way you see it. Gu Nianji chuckled. Lawyer Kai, your reasoning is too much. Kai Xingnan blushed a little. She was a little too impatient. She quickly retracted her gaze. Okay, even if Hua Guanchen didn't have the intention to kill, everyone heard him lie in court. May I ask, Your Honor, what will happen if the witness lies in court and hides important things? Chapter 1369. Kai Xingnan's statement was reasonable and persuasive. Even the judge couldn't help nodding. He asked Gu Nianji kindly, Counsel for the prosecution, do you agree? Of course, Gu Nianji couldn't agree either. Gu Nianji's mind raced as she slowly stood up and said, The defendant's lawyer has presented a new piece of evidence. Let me ask the defendant's lawyer, is the case listed in this journal exactly the same as my client's case? Gu Nianji emphasized, exactly the same, to remind everyone not to be misled by something that looked right, but was actually wrong. Kai Xingnan's heart skipped a beat. She smiled and said, Of course it's exactly the same. I can show everyone the comparison chart made by the expert. She returned to the dock, turned on her laptop and connected it to the large projector in the courtroom. Soon, a comparison chart appeared on the snow-white projection screen in the courtroom. It was comparing the case in the literature with Song Jining's case. Everyone please take a look. The description of the case here is 80% similar to Song Jining's description. It can be concluded that, wait. Gu Nianji raised her hand and called for a pause. Let me ask the defense lawyer again who made this comparison chart. An expert? May I ask who the expert witness is? Anything that could be brought to court had to stand up to scrutiny. In addition to ordinary witnesses, expert witnesses were also very important. Moreover, expert witnesses didn't have to avoid the cross-examination like ordinary witnesses. They could sit in the courtroom from beginning to end and listen to the entire trial. However, in court number 1, there was only one ordinary witness, Hua Guanchen. There was no expert witness. Kai Xingnan smiled and said, Of course it's an expert, but he's very busy and doesn't have time to appear in court. However, he signed a certificate for me to prove that he provided this evidence. Kai Xingnan circulated the expert's signature to everyone in the courtroom. Gu Nianji also looked at the signature, then returned the certificate to Kai Xingnan. She continued to look up at the comparison of the cases on the big screen. When she saw the last comparison frame, Gu Nianji's eyes narrowed. Defense lawyer, can 80% similarity prove that it's the same disease? Gu Nianji picked up the laser pointer in front of her and circled the last comparison frame on the large projection screen. Everyone please take a look. The last comparison of these two cases is the treatment situation. The experts clearly stated that this case is incurable. Just as the defendant's lawyer said, no matter how the patient is cared for, the final result will definitely worsen, and the patient will definitely die. But after my client left the custody and care of the defendant, Luo Jialan, not only did his condition not deteriorate, but he was also cured. Can you conclude that the two cases are the same disease based on this alone? Gu Nianji found a loophole in Kai Xingnan's argument and began to pursue it. The Ebola virus is spread through blood and body fluids. AIDS is also spread through blood and body fluids. The early symptoms of Ebola are also fever, weakness and body aches similar to the flu. Coincidentally, the early symptoms of AIDS are also fever, weakness and night sweats similar to the flu. If we don't look at the later development, the similarity between the two might be 80%, so we can conclude that the two cases are exactly the same. You also think it's ridiculous, don't you? Gu Nianji also glanced at everyone in the courtroom and continued with a smile. I would like to ask the expert witness invited by the defendant's lawyer about this question. How did he come to the conclusion that the two causes of the disease are 80% similar, and that they are the same disease? Kai Xingnan quickly looked at her expert testimony and immediately retorted, Please don't add to the drama. My expert witness didn't say that the two diseases are the same disease. Gu Nianji was waiting for her to say this. She immediately said, since it can't be proved that the two diseases are the same disease, then it means that the defendant, Luo Jialan, is still suspected of trying to mentally abuse my client to death. May I ask the defendant's lawyer, why did you use the results of the case in this magazine to prove that my client's illness will definitely worsen and she will definitely die? Is this called changing the concept or perjury? Whether it was changing the concept or perjury, it was a very serious accusation for a witness. Kai Xingnan's expression instantly changed and she said in a low voice, objection. My expert witness didn't say such a thing. Your expert witness didn't say such a thing, so it must be the defendant's lawyer. Lawyer Kai, if you said such a thing, then the person suspected of perjury is you. Gu Nianji walked up to Kai Xingnan and stood in front of her. Her big eyes were as black jade and she smiled slightly. So, either you admit that your expert testimony is not applicable to this case, or you admit that you perjured yourself. Choose one, Lawyer Kai. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Kai Xingnan's eyes, but she quickly calmed down and said nonchalantly, this testimony is just circumstantial evidence. If the prosecution doesn't like it, then it won't be used as evidence in this case. The testimony that she had spent a lot of money to get the psychiatrist to make had been invalidated just like that. Kai Xingnan felt that it was a pity, but at this time, it was the clearest choice to make. Gu Nianji nodded and said approvingly, the defendant's lawyer is quick to see the opportunity and is able to correct his mistakes. Nothing is better than that. Kai Xingnan's face twitched twice, and she almost vomited blood at Gu Nianji's words. This path wasn't going to work, but it didn't matter. She still had another way. Kai Xingnan quickly composed herself and said to the judge, Your Honor, I still want to call my two witnesses. Please allow the prosecution's witness to leave. The judge agreed to her request and knocked the gavel to let Huo Guanchen leave. At the same time, he asked the bailiff to bring in one of the defendant's two witnesses. Auntie Xing was a domestic helper who had come to the Hua family after Luo Jialan took over taking care of Song Jining. She had a professional certificate to take care of mental patients, and was considered very popular in the domestic service industry. When she arrived at the witness stand in court number 1 and stood still, Auntie Xing once again swore that she was telling the truth, and that she would only tell the truth. However, although the witness was swearing, no one truly believed that the witness would tell the truth just because she had sworn. There was no contradiction in swearing that a person who liked to lie was also lying. If one believed that the witness's words must be true, then one's IQ was not suitable for legal work. Gu Nianji returned to the plaintiff's stand and sat down. Her palms were wet. She had also broken out in a cold sweat just now. She had almost been scared by Kai Xingnan. Song Jining quietly reached over and held Gu Nianji's hand. She squeezed it tightly. This was to encourage her. Gu Nianji relaxed and looked at Song Jining with a smile. She mouthed, I'm fine. Thank you. Song Jining looked at Gu Nianji with pity. She thought to herself that this little girl's face was pale and her forehead was covered in sweat, yet she said she was fine. It wasn't easy to be a defense lawyer. If she didn't keep her guard up, she would be knocked down by the other party at any moment. While it was a battle of wits, it was also a battle of physical strength. Gu Nianji held Song Jining's hand back and motioned for her to look at the witness stand. In front of the witness stand, Kai Xingnan had already walked over and stood in front of Auntie Xing. She asked calmly, Auntie Xing, right? May I ask how long you've been taking care of Miss Song Jining in the Hua family? Auntie Xing timidly glanced at Song Jining on the plaintiff's stand and lowered her eyelids. 6 years. She had only entered the Hua family a year after Luo Jialan took over Song Jining. The few domestic helpers who had taken care of Song Jining in the past had been fired by Luo Jialan. Took care of her for 6 years? Tell me, why did you attempt to murder Miss Song Jining? Kai Xingnan suddenly changed the topic and pointed out that Auntie Xing was the suspect behind Song Jining's murder. Auntie Xing raised her head abruptly and looked at Kai Xingnan in disbelief. What? I attempted to murder her? Wasn't I a witness? Why did you say that I attempted to murder her? Not only was Auntie Xing stunned, but everyone in the courtroom was also shocked. Gu Nianji's gaze darted between Auntie Xing and Kai Xingnan. She frowned slightly and thought to herself, what was Kai Xingnan up to now? Was she looking for a scapegoat and finding a witness? This was the third update of the day, chapter 1359, Don't add scenes to yourself. Cute little corgi continues to bow its paws in front of arms. Dear beautiful sisters and handsome brothers, it's the last 3 hours. My little master is waiting to be fed. I want a few monthly votes. If you don't have monthly votes, you won't get any dog food. P.S. If you don't have monthly votes, remember to vote for the next month's monthly votes to the Major General after midnight. Moi. Chapter 1370. All eyes in the courtroom focused on Kai Xingnan again. Her expression was serious as she looked straight at Auntie Xing. No one could tell what she was thinking. Auntie Xing whispered nervously, "Lawyer Kai, what do you mean? When did I attempt to murder Mrs. Song?" She was still used to calling Song Jining Mrs. Song. Although Song Jining had already left the Hua family, she still couldn't change it. "Didn't you?" Kai Xingnan tilted her head and looked at Auntie Xing with her hands behind her back. "Then why didn't you take good care of Mrs. Song? You made her live in a cramped and crowded room, didn't talk to her, and left her alone in the attic all year round?" These were all the mental abuse that Luo Jialan had inflicted on Song Jining mentioned in Gun Yanji's indictment. Auntie Xing cried out in grievance, "How can you blame me for this? I'm just a caretaker. A housekeeper. The owner asked me to do all of this." Gun Yanji immediately followed up, "You mean Luo Jialan no Hua Jialan asked you to do all of this?" Kai Xingnan turned to look at her. "Lawyer Gu, I'm the one asking the questions now. Can you not interrupt us when we're asking the questions?" Gun Yanji smiled. "Then Lawyer Kai, can you not randomly object when I'm asking the questions?" Kai Xingnan, "You can't do it, can you?" Gun Yanji said earnestly. "Actually, we're all trying to figure out the truth. I know Lawyer Kai is willing to defend Luo Jialan because you believe that she's not the murderer, right?" It was Kai Xingnan's turn to be confused. What was Gun Yanji doing? Was she going to switch sides? Wasn't she going to defend Song Jining anymore? Gun Yanji said calmly, "So when I prove to Lawyer Kai and the court that Luo Jialan really tried to murder Miss Song Jining, you won't defend her, right?" "Of course not." Kai Xingnan instinctively objected. "Luo Jialan is my client no matter what she does." As soon as she said that, Kai Xingnan knew she was in trouble. She quickly glanced at the 4 people from the military in the gallery. Sure enough, she saw them frowning and looking very dissatisfied with her. In fact, there was nothing wrong with this in terms of law. As a lawyer, when Kai Xingnan chose to defend Luo Jialan, regardless of whether Luo Jialan was guilty or innocent, she had to defend her to the end. This was the professional ethics of this profession. As for whether Luo Jialan was guilty or not, it was not up to the lawyer to decide, but the court to decide. However, for Gun Yanji to bring this matter up like this, it didn't sound so honorable. In fact, the most correct answer should be that she believed that Luo Jialan was innocent, so she chose to defend her. She couldn't say that she would defend Luo Jialan regardless of whether she was guilty or not. No matter what she does, Lawyer Kai will defend her. So what Lawyer Kai really means is that even if Luo Jialan is the real murderer, you have to defend her to the end, right? Gun Yanji once again set up a verbal trap for her. Gun Yanji had set a verbal trap for her just like that. Kai Xingnan composed herself and forcefully pulled her thoughts back from Gun Yanji's interruption. She turned around and continued to ask Auntie Xing. "Auntie Xing, you just said that the master asked you to do it. May I ask who the master you're talking about is? Is this person in court?" Kai Xingnan turned her body to the side and no longer stood in front of Auntie Xing. Auntie Xing's gaze slid over to Luo Jialan. Kai Xingnan followed her gaze. "Did Luo Jialan know Miss Hua Jialan ask her to do this?" "Auntie Xing, before you answer yes or no, I want to remind you that you're testifying in court. If your testimony isn't true, you'll be implicated in perjury." Objection. The defense lawyer is threatening the defense witness. Gun Yanji raised her hand lazily and actually spoke up for Auntie Xing. Auntie Xing looked at Gun Yanji in surprise, then at Luo Jialan. She carefully recalled the situation at the time. After a while she said, "This person isn't in court." "Who is that person? A man? Or a woman?" The smile on Kai Xingnan's lips was faintly discernible. Her attitude softened, and her tone could be said to be very persuasive. Gun Yanji frowned. Could it be that Kai Xingnan's goal wasn't to blame Auntie Xing for the murder, but to still target Hua Guanchen? To be honest, Gun Yanji didn't believe that Hua Guanchen had the intention to kill Song Jining. Yes, Hua Guanchen was a scumbag. What he did to his seriously ill wife was simply inhumane. But that didn't mean that he wanted Song Jining's life. If Kai Xingnan still wanted to use Hua Guanchen as a scapegoat, Gun Yanji wanted to see what other concrete evidence Kai Xingnan had. Gun Yanji had already denied that Hua Guanchen was the murderer and refuted Kai Xingnan's evidence. If Kai Xingnan wanted to drag Hua Guanchen in again, she would need new evidence. Gun Yanji looked at Kai Xingnan and Auntie Xing even more intently. However, Auntie Xing actually said, "It's Miss Bai." It's Bai Jini who has already been sentenced. Did she ask you to do this? Kai Xingnan's interest was piqued. Tell me specifically, what did she ask you to do? Auntie Xing said honestly, Miss Bai said that Mrs. Song would forget what happened the day before every day, so she had to be given more familiar things to be placed by her side to help her recover her memory. So this was the reason why her room was getting more crowded and there were more things in her room? Also, Miss Bai said that Mrs. Song's brain was seriously injured. She's afraid of light and noise, so we usually don't dare to talk to her. So this was the reason why they didn't talk to her, left her alone in the attic and gave her cold treatment. Gu Nianji cursed silently as she listened, but she was also very surprised. So the real target of Kai Xingnan's shifting the blame was Bai Jini. It had to be said that Kai Xingnan's target was quite accurate. Gu Nianji's heart was filled with mixed emotions as she silently looked in Kai Xingnan's direction. If what Auntie Xing said was true, then Luo Jialan could really be acquitted. This was because Bai Jini was indeed Song Jinning's attending psychiatrist at the time. Last year, before she was convicted, Gu Nianji had mocked her for practicing medicine without a license, and being a deceitful Mongolian doctor. Therefore these arrangements were all made by Bai Jini. Luo Jialan, like Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu, only obeyed. Then Luo Jialan's suspicions were almost completely cleared. Gu Nianji looked at Luo Jialan with a complicated expression. Suddenly, she noticed that Luo Jialan had raised her head and quickly glanced in her direction. Then Luo Jialan raised the corners of her lips and revealed a half-smile. This provocative expression was like a bucket of cold water poured over Gu Nianji's head, causing her to suddenly wake up. No, there was one part of Kai Xingnan's question that was ambiguous. Not only had it misled Auntie Xing, but it had also misled everyone in the courtroom. Even someone as vigilant as Gu Nianji had almost been fooled. Gu Nianji recalled how high and mighty Bai Jini had once been. It was hard for her to imagine that she would speak to Auntie Xing and Auntie Yu like this. In an instant, Gu Nianji had already thought of Kai Xingnan's sloppiness and prepared what she was going to ask. At that moment, Kai Xingnan smiled widely and said to the judge, Your Honor, you can see that this has nothing to do with my client. It was purely Bai Jini's doing. Bai Jini was already convicted of murdering Luo Xinxue last year. In my opinion, we still missed one of her charges, which was attempting to murder Miss Song Jinning. And my client is completely innocent. Kai Xingnan said firmly. She ended her questioning of Auntie Xing and said, Your Honor, I would like to call in the next witness. Gu Nianji raised her hand and said calmly, Wait. Your Honor, I have something to ask Auntie Xing. Kai Xingnan had already cross-examined the prosecution witness, Huo Guanchen. Now it was Gu Nianji's turn to cross-examine the defense witness, Auntie Xing. The judge nodded in approval. The prosecution lawyer may begin questioning. Gu Nianji walked to the witness stand and asked only one question. Auntie Xing, what you said just now was Miss Bai's instructions. May I ask, did Miss Bai personally tell you these words? Gu Nianji emphasized the word personally. She explained, I asked if she said it herself. What I meant was, like we are now face-to-face talking to you and telling you how to take care of Song Jinning. Chapter 1371. Kai Xingnan couldn't help sneering. Lawyer Gu, can't you hear what I'm saying? Auntie Xing made it very clear that my client was only relaying Bai Jini's medical advice. How did it become my client's fault when it came to you? In order to slander my client, you are willing to go to any lengths. I'm willing to do anything? Gu Nianji couldn't help but laugh. This is really a case of the thief calling the thief. She turned around and walked to her plaintiff's stand. Without looking back, she said, If you insist that Luo Jialan was only relaying Bai Jini's medical advice, please show me the evidence. Medical advice, not a doctor's verbal advice. Medical advice requires a prescription to be considered a medical advice. Although Bai Jini didn't have the qualifications to practice as a psychiatrist, she still kept Song Jinning's medical records over the years, and even had her own prescriptions. These were all evidence that had been exposed during Bai Jini's trial for murdering Luo Xinxue. Gu Nianji dared to insist that Bai Jini hadn't said these medical advice, because she had read all the case reports and prescriptions that Bai Jini had left behind. Moreover, Gu Nianji had a photographic memory, and all the materials she had seen were stored in her mind. As long as she mentioned the beginning, she would be able to remember what she had read. Made Song Jinning's room more and more cramped, didn't talk to her, and left her alone in the attic all year round. Gu Nianji remembered very clearly that Bai Jini's medical reports and prescriptions had never included these items. Therefore, she concluded that Luo Jialan had used Bai Jini's name to direct Anti Xing and Anti Yu to send Song Jining to her death step by step. If Gu Nianji hadn't appeared, Song Jining would have been dead by now. Kai Xingnan looked at Gu Nianji's back and said with a dark expression, "You're asking me for evidence for what you said so many years ago? Are you sure you're not bickering?" Gu Nianji turned around with a cold expression. "I never bicker in court. Lawyer Kai, if you can't produce evidence of Bai Jini's medical advice, then I'm sorry to say that I won't accept your explanation of shifting the blame to Bai Jini. I insist that Luo Jialan is the murderer who wanted to murder Miss Song Jining. Moreover, what Anti Xing said just now has confirmed our accusations." Gu Nianji looked at Luo Jialan and said lightly, "Luo Jialan has indeed been scheming to kill Miss Song Jining. She has been planning this for years and even thought of a scapegoat." Objection. Kai Xingnan quickly interrupted Gu Nianji. "I object to the prosecution's speculations about my client's behavior." The judge looked at her without moving and ignored her objection. He looked at her through the edge of his reading glasses. "Does the defense lawyer still want to call you as a second witness?" This meant that she didn't agree with Kai Xingnan's objection. Kai Xingnan felt aggrieved. She gritted her teeth and said, "Yes." Soon Anti Xing was taken away and Anti Yu was brought in. Anti Yu and Anti Xing had always been inseparable from the Hua family, and they spoke almost the same words. There were a few discrepancies, but that was within the normal range. Because if the two of them really said the same things, then they must have colluded. When it came to the measures that had worsened Song Jining's living environment, Anti Yu first said that it was Bai Jini's orders, but under Gu Nianji's questioning she finally admitted that it was Luo Jialan who had relayed Bai Jini's medical advice. After Anti Yu's testimony, she was taken out of courtroom number 1. Gu Nianji glanced at the judge and stood up to summarize her statement. By now the situation is very clear. Luo Jialan did indeed intend to kill Song Jining. This was not an accidental killing, nor was it a murderous act on a spur of the moment. It was a deliberate plot that had been delayed for many years. I request the court to give a fair trial and give my client a belated justice. The judge nodded and looked coldly at Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan. "Do you have any new witnesses or evidence? If not, I think the court can already pass the sentence." Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan didn't say a word. Gu Nianji became nervous. Her large and dark eyes looked in the direction of Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan. There was a glimmer of light in her eyes, like a lonely tinder burning stubbornly. It shouldn't be like this. She thought to herself that Kai Xingnan shouldn't only have these 2 tricks up her sleeve. She must have more tricks up her sleeve. Sure enough, Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan exchanged a look, as if they had made up their mind. She raised her head and said, "Your Honor, we still have new witnesses and evidence. We will submit them to the court immediately." The judge clasped his hands and looked at her expressionlessly for a moment before saying, "Sure. However, your client is a suspect of intentional homicide. According to the rules, after the first trial, she needs to be detained and guarded." Luo Jialan was shocked. Was this going to convict her? And restrict her freedom? She looked at Kai Xingnan in panic and begged in a low voice, "Lawyer Kai, please help me. I don't want to be locked up." She didn't want to be convicted even more. Kai Xingnan had no choice. After the first round of trial, they hadn't expected Gu Nianji to counter their moves and overturn the first 2 plans they had drawn up in the blink of an eye. They were forced to come up with a third plan. This was also the last plan. If this plan didn't work, Kai Xingnan shook her head and refused to think further. It would definitely work. This was the ultimate plan they had prepared for Gu Nianji. Kai Xingnan pursed her lips. Her gaze swept past Gu Nianji's face and landed on Song Jining, who was sitting next to Gu Nianji. From her peerlessly beautiful face she could vaguely see Hua Xiaoheng's handsome outline. Kai Xingnan closed her eyes and said to the judge, "May I ask how much the court's bail is? You can go to the office next door to complete the formalities." The judge didn't say how much the bail was. He closed the file and knocked on the gavel. "The first trial is over. When the defendant's lawyer submits new evidence, we will choose a day to retry the case." Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan left court number 1 with sullen faces and went to the office next door to pay the bail. Gu Nianji and Song Jining walked out of the courthouse together. Hua Guanchen stood in front of a military vehicle in front of the courthouse, waiting for them silently. He had a cigarette in his hand, and his expression was solemn as he stood straight. Seeing them come out, Hua Guanchen threw the cigarette in his hand into the trash can under the tree and walked up to them. Jining, I'll take you back. He looked at Song Jining and said apologetically. Song Jining smiled and said politely, no need to trouble yourself. Nianji can take me back. Gu Nianji had wanted to hide far away, but when Song Jining glanced at her, she didn't dare to move. She obediently stood by the side and became a cute third wheel. Hua Guanchen glanced at Gu Nianji and said kindly, Nianji, it's all thanks to you today. If you're free on the weekends, come home with Xiaoheng more often. Gu Nianji had never heard such a pleasant tone from Hua Guanchen, so she was shocked. But after the shock, she understood that Hua Guanchen was beginning to accept her as his daughter-in-law. Although deep down she didn't really care whether Hua Guanchen accepted her or not, there was no doubt that it was better if Hua Guanchen could accept her than if he didn't. This way Hua Xiaoheng would be less worried and wouldn't be caught in a dilemma between his wife and father. Gu Nianji silently thought about Hua Xiaoheng's dilemma, and couldn't help laughing secretly. She knew that this kind of dilemma would never happen to Hua Xiaoheng. If Hua Guanchen didn't accept Gu Nianji, Hua Xiaoheng would never return to that home again. Gu Nianji knew that he had the confidence to do so. She smiled at Hua Guanchen. Okay, I'll go back with Hua Xiao when I'm free. Hua Guanchen smiled at her and looked at Song Jining again. Song Jining also smiled politely and didn't keep him at arm's length. However, her distant and polite attitude made him feel worse than scolding, beating, or even rejecting him. Scolding, beating, and rejecting him actually meant that he still had a place in her heart. Now that she wasn't even angry, it was enough to show that the last bit of warmth she had for him had disappeared without a trace. The three of them stood awkwardly in front of the military vehicle in front of the courthouse. That was until a car horn broke the strange silence between them. Gu Nianji looked in the direction of the horn and saw that it was Hua Xiaoheng's car. She immediately sighed in relief and quickly said, Hua Xiao is here. Hua Guanchen and Song Jining looked up at the same time. Hua Xiaoheng pushed open the car door and got out. He walked up to the three of them and nodded to Hua Guanchen. You're here. He then asked Song Jining, do you want me to take you back? Song Jining quickly agreed and politely bid farewell to Hua Guanchen. We'll be leaving first. Goodbye. She got into Hua Xiaoheng's car without looking back. Gu Nianji said to Hua Xiaoheng, I drove too. It's in the parking lot. Hua Xiaoheng reached out to her. Give me the car keys. Gu Nianji took out the car keys and placed them in Hua Xiaoheng's palm. Hua Xiaoheng turned around and said to the car, Xiao Yi, go drive Nianji's car away. I'll send you the address. Hua Xiaoheng's car door opened again, and a tall, beautiful woman pushed the door open and got out. She had long wavy hair, and the ends of her hair were dyed burgundy, which made her skin look especially fair and delicate. Her figure was so busty that it was against the rules. Gu Nianji's eyes widened. Where did this beautiful lady come from? She had never seen her before. Xiao Yi took Gu Nianji's car keys from Hua Xiaoheng and smiled at Gu Nianji. Okay, chief. He then asked Gu Nianji, Miss Gu, is your car in the courthouse parking lot? Gu Nianji nodded and pointed her in the direction of the parking lot as she watched Xiao Yi walk gracefully towards the parking lot. Hua Xiao, is this your new hire? Gu Nianji asked curiously as Hua Xiaoheng shoved her into the car. Hua Xiaoheng buckled her seatbelt and said casually, It's not a new recruit. She has been training abroad and returned to the country a few days ago. She just returned from her vacation. Gu Nianji ignored it when she heard that it was Hua Xiaoheng's subordinate. She looked at Song Jining, who was sitting on the other side of her, and asked in a low voice, Miss Song, how are you? Are you tired? Do you want some water? Song Jining leaned against the car door and pondered. Nianji, can I not appear in court next time? This is today's second chapter. Chapter 1361, Pretty Girl. It's the last month of 2017, please vote. It's 8 o'clock in the evening. I'll try my best to keep updating. Can you guys vote for the Major General? Thank you. Chapter 1372. Gu Nianji heard Song Jining say that she didn't want to appear in court anymore, so she didn't insist. She knew that this kind of thing wasn't something that ordinary people could handle, so she quickly said, Are you not feeling well? It's okay, you don't have to go next time. I can do it alone. Song Jining interrupted her and said with a smile, It's not because I'm not feeling well, it's because I think it's a waste of time. I've been in court for 3 whole hours today and I can do several experiments. Gu Nianji, who had been a top student for many years, understood for the first time what it felt like to be a bad student. Nianji, this is a critical moment for the experiment. My time is really tight. Song Jining held Gu Nianji's hand apologetically. There's more and more magnetic field data and I have a new idea. I'm using a computer program to miniaturize the experiment and plan to conduct a simulation experiment on the computer. Once the simulation experiment begins, the analyzer will run the program day and night without stopping for a moment. Gu Nianji's eyes turned red as she listened. However, she still nodded her head to show that she understood. Song Jining was amused by her little face. What's with that look? You didn't understand a single word, did you? Not really. I understood the last sentence. I can't stop for a moment. Gu Nianji smiled and hugged Song Jining's shoulder. It's okay, you can go do the experiment. Leave the matter of dealing with those little ghosts to me, the ghost hunter master, Gu Nianji. Song Jining laughed so hard that she bent over and said that her stomach hurt. The orderly driver, Fan Jian, who was sitting in the front, subconsciously glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Hua Xiaoheng sitting upright in the back seat. His solemn eyes flashed with a satisfied smile. Sitting next to him was the woman he loved and the mother he respected. Hua Xiaoheng had never been a sentimental person, but at this moment he only wished for the world to last forever and for time to pass without a trace. Kai Xingnan and Luo Jialan spent more than an hour in the court and paid an astronomical sum of money to complete the bail procedures. Luo Jialan's passport had been confiscated by the Special Operations Forces, and now her ID card and driver's license had been detained by the court. She could only stay in her own home in the capital and couldn't go anywhere. After leaving the court, the two of them sat in Kai Xingnan's car and didn't speak for a while. It wasn't until they left the court and got on the highway that Kai Xingnan said to Luo Jialan, who was sitting in the passenger seat, "Have you thought it through? Do you really want to do this?" Luo Jialan snorted and rested her elbow on the window. "Do you have a better idea?" Kai Xingnan turned the steering wheel and changed to the fast lane. She returned to Kai Xingnan's car in a daze, covered her face with her hands and cried hysterically. "She lied to me. She lied to me. She was really using me." Kai Xingnan sighed softly and handed her a tissue. "Don't cry, it's not like we don't have a way. As long as you're willing." Luo Jialan had no choice. She grabbed Kai Xingnan's hand like she was grabbing onto the last straw. She sobbed and said, "I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you. Then plead guilty to a misdemeanor and avoid a felony." Kai Xingnan made up her mind. "But this way you won't be able to be with Hua Xiaoheng anymore. Is it worth it?" Luo Jialan thought about it and finally let out a long sigh. "Lawyer Kai, can you communicate with him? Just say that as long as he agrees to leave Gu Nianji and drop the complaint, not only will I not charge him, but I'll also treat the trust fund as my dowry and share it with him." The final plan that she and Kai Xingnan had come up with was a devastating blow to Hua Xiaoheng. Kai Xingnan laughed. "I'll communicate with Gu Nianji. It's useless to tell Hua Xiaoheng all this. The only person you can threaten is Gu Nianji." "Really?" Luo Jialan thought about it, then smiled and nodded. "That's true. Then tell Gu Nianji. As long as she voluntarily breaks off the engagement with Xiaoheng, I won't press this charge. Whether she wants to protect Hua Xiaoheng's reputation, or if she's greedy and refuses to let go of a rich family, it'll probably be clear at a glance." The two of them drove away. After disappearing from the small road in front of the grocery store, an ordinary-looking man walked into the grocery store and looked at the grocery store owner's phone records. After finding the time and number of times Luo Jialan had called, the man sent an encrypted text message to his colleagues. The target dialed from phone number XXXXXXX at XX o'clock XX minute XX second. Check with the phone company to see what number was called. After Hua Xiaoheng sent Song Jining back to the Institute of High Energy Physics, he asked Gu Nianji, "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to Heping Li." Gu Nianji shook Hua Xiaoheng's hand. "There's still a tough battle to fight. I need to prepare the information." Hua Xiaoheng actually wanted her to go back to the official residence with him, but when he saw the dark circles under her eyes, he reached out his thumb and gently wiped the dark circles under her eyes. He nodded lightly. "Go back and have a good rest. Is there any food at home?" Gu Nianji pursed her lips and smiled sheepishly. "I'll order takeout." Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. "Let's go together. I'll get someone to deliver something." He called the orderlies at his official residence and asked them to deliver rice, noodles, oil, eggs, vegetables, mushrooms, and shrimp to Gu Nianji, as well as home-cooked dishes such as fresh fish, scallops, ham, green beans, beef, and pork. Chapter 1373. Another invalid number. Hua Xiaoheng remained calm and asked, What's the number? His subordinate reported the number to him. It was another 4-digit number, and it was claimed to be an international number because according to their telecommunications tracking, it was confirmed that this call had indeed been made through the submarine cable, all the way to the other side of the ocean. But after reaching the other side of the ocean, it was cut off. Because there was no such number on the other side. Hua Xiaoheng's expression didn't change in the slightest. He said indifferently, "Continue monitoring. Report to me immediately if anything happens." "Yes, Chief." The other side hung up. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji thoughtfully. Gu Nianji finished a sumptuous breakfast and dinner and felt extremely comfortable. She got up and walked up and down the hall, counting her steps as she went. Hua Xiaoheng placed the utensils in the dishwasher in the kitchen and filled it with dishwasher detergent. He adjusted the program and started the dishwasher. He also went to the bathroom to take a shower. While he was in Gu Nianji's bedroom, he logged onto the Special Operations Force's website to read his work emails for a while. Half an hour later, he came out of the bedroom and saw Gu Nianji still spinning around in the living room. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head speechlessly. He picked up a military magazine and sat down on the sofa in the living room. Crossing his legs, he flipped through the magazine and asked calmly, "What are you doing? Aren't you tired after walking for half an hour?" "I ate too much so I can't sit down immediately after eating. I need to exercise more or else my tummy will get bigger." Gu Nianji rubbed her tummy with some distress. "I seem to have put on some weight recently." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her waist. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he said, "It's okay." She looked at the magazine in front of her. The black words and colorful pictures swayed in front of her, but she couldn't bear to look at them. After a while, Hua Xiaoheng put down the military magazine in his hand and walked to the window. He crossed his arms and leaned against the windowsill. He carefully looked at Gu Nianji, who was still pacing in the living room, and suddenly asked, "Is your period normal?" Gu Nianji looked up at him in surprise. "It's normal. It's extremely accurate, not a day off. I just came here a few days ago." "What's wrong?" He had just been here a few days ago, therefore it was definitely not the case. Hua Xiaoheng looked away with mixed feelings. For a moment he couldn't tell if he was happier or more disappointed. He stopped thinking about it and walked to Gu Nianji's side. "It's useless to just walk if you want to reduce your belly size. Then what should we do?" "Do push-ups. Do 20 standard push-ups at a time. Inhale and suck in your abdomen. Do a total of 5 sets." Gu Nianji kissed him and felt something. She reached out to hug him. Hua Xiaoheng hugged her in his arms and sat up from the ground. He let her lie on his lap and leaned her upper body against the crook of his arm. He held her head and kissed her deeply again. The next morning Hua Xiaoheng woke up very early. After going out for morning exercise he bought 2 breakfasts and walked back with them. Xiao Yi stood at the door at the bottom of the building waiting for him with a smile. "Ah, you're here." Hua Xiaoheng greeted her. Xiao Yi handed Gu Nianji's car keys back to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng took the car keys and asked her, "Why did you only deliver the keys today?" Xiao Yi whispered, "You were at Miss Gu's house yesterday. I was afraid to disturb you." After she drove Gu Nianji's car over yesterday, she had wanted to wait for Hua Xiaoheng to leave before delivering the keys. She didn't want to disturb the two of them. She didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to go in and not come out until this morning. Hua Xiaoheng grunted and said pleasantly, "Xiao Yi, since you're here I'll tell you directly. After you came back this time, your mother begged me to let you stay in the country for a while longer." "Huh?" Xiao Yi was very embarrassed and quickly said, "Chief, don't listen to my mother's nonsense. She doesn't know anything. I like to go out into the field. You can send me anywhere else." Hua Xiaoheng smiled and said, "Let's go upstairs first. Have you had breakfast?" Xiao Yi cleverly looked at the breakfast in Hua Xiaoheng's hand. There was only 2 servings, so she quickly said, "I've eaten. I've eaten since I woke up early in the morning." Hua Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks and looked at her. He said calmly, "You've eaten? You stayed in the parking lot all night, right? Where did you have breakfast?" Xiao Yi's face turned red. She smiled embarrassedly. "Chief, I didn't. You're still lying in front of me?" Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her. "You smell like the perfume in Yanji's car. This proves that you've been in her car for at least 6 hours. Your hair and face are both oily. You probably haven't showered or washed your hair all night. Also, your stomach growled twice just now. You just came out of the parking lot and didn't have breakfast, right?" Xiao Yi was both embarrassed and convinced. She was also glad that she had chewed a piece of gum when she got out of the car in the morning. Otherwise she wouldn't have dared to talk to anyone else. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng with a face full of admiration. Chief, you're too amazing. Not a single clue can escape your sharp eyes. Xiao Yi was so impressed that she prostrated herself in admiration. Hua Xiaoheng handed her the breakfast in his hand. Take it up and wait for me at the door. I'll be right back. Xiao Yi didn't dare disobey the order. Hua Xiaoheng pressed the elevator floor for her and let her go up. He went out to buy another breakfast. Hua Xiaoheng quickly asked the Special Operations Forces to make another set of identity documents for Xiao Yi. This place is too small. I'll ask Nianji to move to the apartment on the 3rd Ring Road. It's bigger there so you can follow her in. As the name implied, a personal bodyguard had to be like a shadow to be called a personal bodyguard. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1363, Like a Shadow. The second update was at 1 p.m., and the third update was at 8 p.m. A reminder for the monthly votes and recommendation votes. P.S. Thank you MOMO Sure for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.